SAO is the embodiment of everything wrong with anime. It's a festering pile of trash. Even people in Japan hate SAO, and it has a horrible reputation. My biggest mistake was watching SAO. If given the chance, a lot of people would wipe their memories clean of ever watching SAO. Forgetting it would be a blessing. Yet, sadly, we can't erase the damage it's done to our lives. SAO starts off bad, and it somehow manages to dig a deeper hole for itself as it drags on. The second arc, Fairy Dance, is so atrocious that even the die-hard SAO fans don't like it.
Kind of enjoyed Sword Art Online. How dare you? First season, or first, arc.
Please tell me you didn't enjoy Alfheim Online.
Oh, no, God. Okay.
No. Fairy Dance is so unbelievably bad that it actually woke people up. It made them finally see the light and realize that SAO was never good to begin with. Even the kind of people who eat up garbage anime like it's a 5-star meal couldn't stomach this arc.
Alfheim was the biggest fumble, and it fumbled so hard that it made me question if the first half of the season were good or not.
Next, I'll be tearing apart the Phantom Bullet arc, but for now, let's dive into why Fairy Dance is a dumpster fire.
After escaping from Sword Art Online and returning to reality, Kirito discovers that Asuna is trapped inside another virtual reality MMORPG called Alfheim Online. Kirito must log into Alfheim Online and rescue Asuna. In this video, I'll break down the Sword Art Online Fairy Dance arc. Episode 1, Return. The anime begins with Kirito and Asuna sitting in a rocking chair on the porch of the forest house they purchased on floor 22 in Aincrad. The sky suddenly turns red and Asuna disappears. The world begins shattering and Kirito starts to panic. However, it was all a nightmare, and Kirito suddenly wakes up. Kirito should try to get some therapy, since he clearly has post-traumatic stress disorder. Additionally, meditation, exercising, and establishing a regular sleep schedule can help Kirito avoid his nightmares, since it'll relieve some stress and anxiety. Kirito starts crying, and acknowledges to Asuna that he's become a big crybaby. Afterwards, Kirito watches Suguha, his sister, practicing kendo in the backyard. Kirito holds Suguha's shinai, and claims that it's not only light, but also not as heavy as he's used to. This surprises Suguha since the shinai is made out of timber bamboo. Typical shinai for female junior high school students weigh about 400 grams, or approximately 0.88 pounds, so they aren't that heavy. A normal person should easily be able to pick that up. Kirito challenges Suguha to a no-contact kendo match in their dojo. Kirito says that he's been doing rehab in the gym every day, so he should be ready for the fight, even though Suguha told him to take it easy. Kirito and Suguha put on their protective gear. Kirito uses his own stance, which is based on his attack style from Sword Art Online. This isn't effective at all, and Suguha easily defeats Kirito. This goes to show that your skills in a video game don't transfer over to real life. Kirito might have been the best player in Sword Art Online, but in real life he's not very strong or powerful, and he can't win any fights on his own. It was foolish of Kirito to think that he had a chance against Suguha, considering that she was a quarter-finalist in the middle school nationals. Additionally, Suguha has a lot more kendo experience than Kirito, since he stopped when he was a kid, while Suguha has been training her entire life. Not to mention that Kirito was in a coma and bedridden for over 2 years, so he's not exactly in the best physical shape. Kirito and Suguha wash up. Kirito thinks about taking up kendo again, and Suguha is extremely excited to hear this. Suguha declares that she can be Kirito's teacher, and they can train together like they used to. Suguha states that she's been practicing something else too, but doesn't inform Kirito what it is. This was a bad decision. We later find out that Suguha is playing Alfheim Online. There's no reason for Suguha to keep this a secret from Kirito, since she knows that he loves playing MMORPGs. Therefore, it would be a great opportunity for Suguha to bond with Kirito. They could play together since MMORPGs aren't meant to be played solo, and there are a ton of group activities to do in the game. A lot of misunderstandings could have been avoided later in the series if Suguha simply told Kirito the truth right now. Kirito visits the hospital to meet Asuna. It's been 2 months since Kirito beat Heathcliff, and the players escaped from the Sword Art Online death game. 2 months is a really short rehabilitation period. It would have been a lot more realistic if the time was extended by several months. It usually takes about 6 months for someone to regain the ability to walk again. When Kirito woke up, he talked to someone from the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Kirito told them everything he knew about Sword Art Online, and in exchange they told him where Asuna was. But Asuna revealed what her full name and age was to Kirito before Sword Art Online ended. Additionally, Kirito knows what Asuna looks like in real life, since the players' avatars in the game match their real-world appearance. So it shouldn't have been too difficult for Kirito to track down Asuna himself. Kirito found out that Asuna was nearby in Saitama. Asuna's family admitted her to Tokorozawa General Hospital. For some reason, Asuna and about 300 former Sword Art Online players haven't woken up yet from their coma. Akihiko Kaiba is missing, and people think that he's the one keeping the players in their coma as part of his plan. That doesn't really fit with Akihiko's personality. Akihiko might have had little to no empathy for people's lives, but he seemed to be a fair and honest person. That's why he allowed Kirito to challenge him and beat the game after his identity was exposed. Akihiko told Kirito that all the players were logged out of Sword Art Online when the death game ended, so Kirito should realize that something else is going on here. Maybe using an EMP can disable the nerve gear and allow the devices to be removed from the players' heads without killing them. Moreover, the nerve gear should have been disarmed after Akihiko was beaten. The Sword Art Online death game is over, so the players shouldn't die in real life anymore because the game doesn't exist. Therefore, it's probably safe to remove the nerve gear from the players' heads without it killing them. In addition to that, we know there's a small grace period between dying in the game and dying in real life. In episode 3 of the Aincrad arc, Kirito obtained a revival item called the Divine Stone of Returning Soul. After defeating the Christmas event boss Nicholas the Renegade, this item could bring a player back to life if it was used within approximately 10 seconds of their death. So this means that the nerve gear doesn't automatically kill the players in real life. There's a short delay. It should be possible to quickly remove the nerve gear from the players' heads without anyone dying. Kirito meets Asuna's father Shozo Yuki and his associate Sugo Nobuyuki, the company's director of R&D. Kirito introduces himself. Sugo recognizes who Kirito is and knows that he was the one who beat Sword Art Online. Sugo states to Shozo that he would like to see Asuna in a wedding dress. After Shozo leaves the room, Sugo notifies Kirito that he intends to marry Asuna, which really angers and upsets Kirito since he's already in love with Asuna and they were lovers in Sword Art Online. It doesn't make sense how Sugo would marry Asuna in the first place. Asuna is in a coma, and you can't marry someone in a coma since they aren't able to consent to the marriage. A proxy wedding wouldn't work either, since those aren't recognized as legally binding. Furthermore, Asuna is a teenager. While it's legal for a woman to get married at 16 years of age in Japan, it still seems a little too early for Asuna to get married. Sugo explains that he plans to get adopted by the Yuki family, so it appears as if he's married to Asuna on paper. This actually makes more sense. In Japan, 98% of all adoptions are employers adopting the adult men on their staff, so the companies or businesses will be family run. This tradition started hundreds of years ago, when money and assets were passed down through the male lines in the family. If the family didn't have any sons, then they would adopt sons to continue the family's legacy and carry on their name. Sugo confesses to Kirito that Asuna has always hated him ever since they were kids. Sugo looks much older than Asuna though, so it's strange how they were hanging out when they were kids. Neither of their parents know the truth, but if Sugo proposed to Asuna and she could speak, then she would definitely say no, so this situation is very favorable for Sugo. Kirito says that Sugo can't take advantage of Asuna like that. However, Sugo asserts that he has a right to Asuna. He informs Kirito that Argus, the company that developed Sword Art Online, closed down due to the lawsuits and damages they had to pay. The company was forced into bankruptcy, and the maintenance of the Sword Art Online servers was given to another company called Wrecked Progress. Asuna's father Shozo is the CEO of the company, and Sugo works for the Full Dive Technology R&D division. In other words, and without getting into specifics, Sugo is the one keeping Asuna alive. That's why Sugo feels like he's owed something in return for his trouble. It's highly likely that Sugo is responsible for Asuna still being in a coma, since he has everything to gain from her being in this exact type of situation. As previously mentioned, if Asuna was able to speak, then she would never agree to marry Sugo, since she hates him. Kirito should let Asuna's family know the truth about Sugo. They should call off the wedding if they found out what was really going on. Sugo doesn't care about the promises Kirito and Asuna made to each other in Sword Art Online. He also doesn't want to ever see Kirito coming here again, and for him to stay away from the Yuki family. The wedding ceremony will begin in a week, and Sugo invites Kirito to come to the wedding, despite the fact that he's not welcome here anymore. Kirito goes home and starts crying at night. Suguha goes into Kirito's room and tries to comfort him. Kirito admits that he's so weak and hopeless. He didn't want Suguha to see him become such a crybaby. Suguha wonders if this is about Asuna. Kirito is sad and depressed because he won't ever see Asuna again. Suguha hugs Kirito and advises him that he shouldn't give up. If he truly loves Asuna so much, even when things seem hopeless, Suguha can't give up either and won't lie to herself anymore. There's a flashback scene, and Suguha talks with her mother Midori in Kirito's hospital room when he was still in the coma. Midori mentions that Kirito somehow logged onto the Citizens Registration Network when he was 10 years old and found out that he was adopted. Kirito's real parents died in an accident. He was adopted by his aunt and uncle a year after he was born. This means that Kirito is actually Suguha's cousin, not her big brother. Suguha has a hard time believing it. What's more is that Suguha has romantic feelings for Kirito, which really complicates things, since Kirito loves Asuna and won't be able to reciprocate Suguha's feelings towards him. Not to mention that Kirito and Suguha are related, so that's a bit weird to say the least. All the female characters fell in love with Kirito in the Aincrad arc, and now his sister joins the harem too. Back in the present, Suguha falls asleep beside Kirito in his bed. Suguha starts crying as well, since she knows that Kirito's heart belongs to Asuna. The next morning, Kirito is feeling a lot better. Suguha wakes up and is extremely embarrassed. embarrassed. She swiftly runs out of Kirito's room. Kirito receives an email from Aegil with a screenshot of a player from another game. The player looks exactly like Asuna. Kirito is very shocked to see this, and he can't believe his eyes. Episode 2, Land of the Fairies. Kirito visits Aegil's cafe and talks with him. Aegil mentions that the screenshot he sent to Kirito in the email was taken from another virtual reality MMORPG for the Atmosphere called Alfheim Online. Alfheim means Land of the Fairies, and players are able to fly in the game. Alfheim actually means Land of the Elves. It's a term from Norse cosmology and one of the 9 worlds. Apparently, the reason why it's called Alfheim here is because William Shakespeare uses the terms elf and fairy interchangeably in his comedy A Midsummer Night's Dream. Aegil discloses a few facts and details about Alfheim Online. PKing is allowed and there's a hardcore skill system. There are no levels in the game, and everything is based on the player's skills. You have to use your skills over and over to improve them. Combat depends on your real-life physical abilities. If that's the case, then people like cops or soldiers will have a big advantage over the normal players, since they have actual combat experience in real life. It's the same as Gun Gale Online. There are also no sword skills. Other than that, Alfheim Online is like Sword Art Online, but with magic. That's a pretty big contrast. The addition of magic changes many things in the game, and makes it completely different from Sword Art Online. Aegil explains that the screenshot of the player resembling Asuna was taken in the middle of the Alfheim Online game, which is where the World Tree is located. There's a legendary castle at the top of the World Tree, and players in the game are divided up into 9 races. Each one of the races is trying to be the first to get to the castle at the top of the World Tree. There's a limit to how long you can stay airborne in Alfheim Online, so players aren't able to fly directly to the top of the World Tree. However, 5 players stacked up and launched themselves like a rocket. They didn't even make it past the lowest branch, but did manage to snap a couple pictures. One of the pictures included a bird cage, and after zooming in on it, they saw the player resembling Asuna. If the player is really Asuna, then Kirito wonders what she's doing in Alfheim Online. Kirito sees how Alfheim Online was created by wrecked progress. He deduces that Asuna must have somehow gotten trapped in the game when she logged out of Sword Art Online. Kirito should show the picture of Asuna to Shozo, since he's the CEO of the company. He can do a formal investigation into Alfheim Online and find out why Asuna is in the game. Moreover, Kirito could try talking to the guy from the Ministry of Internal Affairs. He might be able to do something about this. Kirito goes back home, and Suguha nearly chokes on a muffin since she was surprised to see him. Suguha should chew her food slowly and thoroughly to avoid choking. Kirito could also perform the Heimlich maneuver on Suguha if she didn't have the juice nearby. Kirito thanks Suguha for last night and tells her that he'll get Asuna back no matter what. Suguha wishes Kirito good luck since she wants to get the chance to meet Asuna. Kirito goes into his room and uses his nerve gear to log into Alfheim Online. This is not a wise decision. The nerve gear is what trapped the players in Sword Art Online and made it so that they would die in real life if they died in the game. This could happen again, so it would be a lot smarter and safer if Kirito used an Atmosphere to log into Alfheim Online instead of the nerve gear. The government should have confiscated all the remaining nerve gears to ensure that something like the Sword Art Online incident would never happen again in the future. It doesn't make sense how these new full dive virtual reality games are compatible with the nerve gear either, since those are no longer in production. For instance, games that work on the PlayStation 1 aren't compatible with the PlayStation 5. Kirito is welcomed to Alfheim Online. He enters his gender and username. Kirito is lucky that his name wasn't already taken by another player, since Alfheim Online is not a new game. It's been out for about a year or so by the time Kirito joined. Rare and desirable names are snatched up very fast in MMORPGs. Kirito should go with a different name, since wrecked progress made Alfheim Online. Therefore, Sugo would know who Kirito is, and could do something to stop him from finding Asuna. Sugo is the game master, so he could easily ban Kirito. There are 9 races, and Kirito chooses to play as the Spriggan race. Kirito made this decision way too quickly and without any thought. Kirito should have at least read through all the descriptions of the races, so he would know the pros and cons. Then he can pick the best race to play. Moreover, it would be smart for Kirito to look up a bunch of guides, walkthroughs, and tutorials on the internet before playing Alfheim Online. Kirito only has about a week to save Asuna, so he has to be efficient and pick the best route to the World Tree. Kirito needs to plan everything out and be prepared. He doesn't have the luxury to waste time fooling around and doing stuff that isn't relevant to rescuing Asuna. We learn that the players' appearances are decided at random in Alfheim Online. This is really bad game design. MMORPG players love to customize their avatars, and most players spend hours doing it, so not allowing them to choose their appearance would upset a lot of people. What happens if someone gets an avatar they don't like? Are they supposed to buy another copy of the game and try again? That would be extremely inconvenient. Most players would just quit and play a different game altogether, like what happened to Len in the Sword Art Online alternative Gun Gale Online series. She kept getting characters she didn't like, until finally receiving a small and cute avatar in Gun Gale Online. Kirito gets teleported to his hometown in Spriggan territory, but something goes wrong and he ends up in the middle of the forest in the neutral region instead. instead. How did this glitch or bug make it past the quality assurance team and end up in the final game? This is even further proof that Alfheim Online is a badly designed game. Kirito makes sure that the logout button is there. This is a good thing to do, considering what happened the last time Kirito logged into a full dive virtual reality MMORPG. Kirito checks his stats and finds out that all of his game data from Sword Art Online, including his skills, have somehow transferred over to Alfheim Online. Kirito isn't sure what's going on here and wonders if he's back in Sword Art Online. Kirito discovers that the item containing Yui's data works, and he activates it to bring Yui back to life in Alfheim Online. Yui remembers Kirito and how he's her daddy. Yui doesn't know where she is, and Kirito states that they're inside another game called Alfheim Online. Yui takes a few seconds to assess Alfheim Online, and she discovers that the game world has been copied from the Sword Art Online servers. The cardinal system needs updating, but everything else is the exact same. That's how Kirito's old data from Sword Art Online carried over into Alfheim Online. It still doesn't make too much sense. Kirito's skills and stats from one game shouldn't transfer over to a completely different game, even if they're using a similar engine, programming, and graphics format. For example, if you played old school RuneScape with your RuneScape 3 account, then your items and skills don't transfer over. You would have to start from scratch on a brand new account. In order for Kirito's data to transfer over from Sword Art Online to Alfheim Online, they would need to purposefully code it to work like that. There's no way the designers of Alfheim Online would expect someone to log into the game using their old Sword Art Online account. If Kirito's data transferred over from Sword Art Online to Alfheim Online, then the other Sword Art Online players who logged into Alfheim Online should have experienced the same thing. There were about 6,000 people who survived Sword Art Online, and at least a few of them had to play Alfheim Online as well. This bug should have been discovered a while ago. We know that Aegil played Alfheim Online, since he was the one who introduced Kirito to the game. Why didn't this stat transfer thing happen to Aegil as well? If it did happen to Aegil, then why didn't he warn Kirito about it? Yui tells Kirito to delete his corrupted items before the error detection program finds out about it, and Kirito reluctantly agrees. But why didn't the error detection program immediately discover that something was wrong with Kirito the moment he entered the game? It's similar to how the cardinal system in Sword Art Online didn't detect Yui until she used her admin credentials. These error detection programs should be able to discover things wrong with the game right away. Nobody else except the game master can see Kirito's actual skill levels, so he should be alright if he keeps those. That shouldn't be the case. Players in Alfheim Online shouldn't be able to hide their skill levels, since PvP is a big part of the game. You should know the other players' skill levels before attempting to fight them. In normal games, there's usually a high score or leaderboard system where you can look up this kind of information. Kirito is no longer a beater. He's a plain old cheater now. Yui is classified as a navigation pixie, and she transforms into her pixie appearance. Why don't the other players in Alfheim Online have a navigation pixie as well? They seem to be pretty useful. It was the same thing in Sword Art Online where only Silica had a pet. MMORPG players will usually pay good money to get any kind of advantage in the game. Unfortunately, Yui doesn't have her admin privileges anymore in Alfheim Online. She's only allowed to access the wide area maps in the reference database. Kirito reveals to Yui that her mommy Asuna is stuck somewhere in Alfheim Online. Kirito questions why he ended up in a random forest instead of the Spriggan territory starting town, and Yui says to him that his location data might be corrupted, or perhaps there was some sort of interference. This is a subtle hint that Sugo is also playing Alfheim Online, and she logged into the game from the same house, which is what caused the interference. Although something like that shouldn't affect another player in the first place. What would happen if a large group of people played Alfheim Online at gatherings, conventions, or parties? Yui teaches Kirito how to fly and he immediately gets the hang of it. Kirito tells Yui to scan the map. She discovers that the nearest town, Swilvain, is in Sylph territory west of here. There are a few other players nearby. Two Sylph players named Leafa and Rekon are attacked by a group of salamanders led by Kagemune. They have no choice but to fight back. Rekon is defeated and Leafa is outnumbered by the rest of the salamanders. Leafa and Rekon should have continued to fly towards Swilvain instead of fighting against the salamanders. They couldn't win the fight since they don't have strength in numbers and would be safe in the Sylph territory. Rekon is able to use stealth magic to make himself invisible to monsters and other players, so he should have casted that spell on himself and Leafa. They would be able to get away from the salamanders undetected. Leafa is about to get killed by the salamanders, but Kirito drops by and intervenes. The salamanders warn Kirito to run, but he stays. Kirito uses his broken skills, and he easily defeats two of the salamander players on his own. Episode 3, Captive Queen. Kirito allows Kagemune to escape since he doesn't want to fight. Kirito should have killed Kagemune as well. There's no reason to leave him alive. Kagemune might go and get back up, so Kirito should tie up all the loose ends in case that happens. Players who die in Alfheim Online will remain as lights for a few seconds. They can still hear until the lights completely disappear, so you have to be quiet. Leafa sees Yui and knows that she's one of those private pixies. Leafa demands an explanation as to why a Spriggan like Kirito is wandering around here. Kirito says that he got lost. Leafa starts laughing and doesn't understand how Kirito could have gotten so lost, because Spriggan territory is way to the east. Leafa thanks Kirito for saving her and she introduces herself. Leafa is actually Suguha's character, therefore she should immediately realize who Kirito is. He sounds the exact same as he does in real life. Moreover, Kirito's in-game appearance is nearly identical to his real-world appearance. Kirito's in-game name is a combination of his first and last names in real life. Considering that Suguha's obsessed with Kirito, she should know better. It shouldn't be that hard to put 2 and 2 together. In addition to that, Kirito is supposed to be this famous person, since he was the one who beat Sword Art Online. Suguha should know that. She also knows that Asuna used her real-life name in Sword Art Online, and not many people do that in games. If Suguha knows what Asuna's name was in Sword Art Online, how does she not know Kirito's name? And Kirito should be able to tell who Leafa is, because she also sounds the exact same as she does in real life. Neither of them are using voice changers to disguise their voices. Leafa will buy Kirito a drink as a thanks for saving her. Kirito would also like to ask Leafa about the World Tree. Leafa knows a lot about Alfheim Online, and is happy to answer any questions. There's a neutral village to the north, so Kirito and Leafa plan to fly there. However, Kirito says they should head to Swolvain instead. Leafa tells Kirito that it's Sylph territory, which means that he can't attack any of the players, but they can attack him. Kirito doesn't care, and thinks that nobody will attack him if he doesn't provoke anyone. It would be much smarter to go to the neutral village so the players there can attack Kirito. There's no reason to risk it. Kirito severely underestimates online gamers. People will attack him just because they can. Even if they aren't provoked, there's nothing Kirito can do if he's attacked, since he can't fight back, so it's better to be safe than sorry and fly to the neutral village. Leafa teaches Kirito how to fly without using a controller. Together they fly to Swolvain. This could be a trap, so Kirito should be way more cautious, and he shouldn't trust a random player he just met. Kirito doesn't know how to land and he crashes into a building. Kirito should have asked Leafa how to land before attempting to fly. You can't fly forever in Alfheim Online, so Kirito needed to land sooner or later. Luckily, Leafa can heal Kirito, so it's not a big deal. Kirito is very surprised to see magic. Leafa says that the Undine race are the only ones who specialize in high-level healing spells, which means that the different races in Alfheim Online have their own unique specialities. But anyone can do the spell Leafa just cast. Leafa explains that the Spriggan race is good at treasure hunting and illusion magic, neither of which are much help in battle though, but that's totally not true. Later in the series, Kirito uses his illusion magic to transform into a monster similar to the Gleam Eyes from Sword Art Online, and it's very effective in battle, so Leafa is wrong about this. Leafa either isn't as knowledgeable about Alfheim Online as she thinks, or the author didn't plan ahead. Kirito says that the town looks beautiful. Rekon comes and meets Kirito. Rekon thinks that Kirito might be a spy or something, but Leafa doesn't believe that since Kirito is way too scatterbrained. Leafa should listen to Rekon and trust her friend over some random guy she just met. Kirito could be a spy and he's acting foolish on purpose to avoid suspicion. Leafa takes Kirito to an inn. She buys him a drink and a meal for saving her earlier. Kirito wonders if Rekon is Leafa's boyfriend, but she claims that she's not in love with Rekon. They're simply in the same party. Leafa mentions that she knows Rekon in real life. They go to the same school and are classmates, but that's it. Leafa shouldn't be telling Kirito any details about her personal life. Kirito could use this information to social engineer Leafa and Fisher. Leafa tells Kirito what she knows about the World Tree, since Kirito needs to get to the top as soon as he can. None of the races in Alfheim Online can fly continuously for more than 10 minutes at a time. However, at the top of the World Tree is the floating city. In it lives Oberon the Fairy King. The first race in Alfheim Online to reach Oberon will be reborn as an advanced class of fairy known as elves. They'll be able to fly around as long as they want. There's a big dome at the base of the World Tree, which is the gateway to the floating city, and you have to get past super powerful NPC guards to reach the top. Alfheim Online has been out for around a year now, and nobody has gotten past the guards. It's specifically designed so that one race can't reach the top of the World Tree alone, and nobody wants to help another race get the prize. If there's such a massive reward for being the first to reach Oberon at the top of the World Tree, then it's weird how nobody has done that yet after a year. Players could easily create alternate accounts of a different race to help their friends reach the top. It's hard to believe that not a single player in Alfheim Online has thought of doing that. Alternate accounts are a big part of MMORPGs, and most hardcore players have several of them. Players in Alfheim Online should have reached the top of the World Tree within the first week of release. It's just like it's hard to accept that not a single person thought about going backwards in 5 years during the Copper Key race in the Ready Player One movie. And if it's been about a year since Alfheim Online came out, then that means it was released when the Sword Art Online incident was still going on. There's no way the government would allow another virtual reality MMORPG to come out after thousands of people were trapped inside Sword Art Online. Moreover, Alfheim Online will be unplayable after one of the races reaches the top of the World Tree, because all the new players would choose to play the race that could fly forever. The current players of the other races who can't fly forever would all complain and quit the game too. Things like this go to show that the author of Sword Art Online, Reki Kawahara, isn't very knowledgeable when it comes to MMORPGs and gaming in general. Of course, you don't need to be an expert to write a story about something, but Reki Kawahara should at least do some basic research before writing a story that's centered around MMORPGs. Kirito Kirito is determined to get to the top of the world tree as fast as he can and tells Leafa that he's looking for someone. Instead of being so vague here, Kirito should say that he's looking for Asuna. Leafa will be able to figure out that the Kirito in game she's talking to right now is the same exact Kirito she knows in real life. Many mix-ups and confusions could have been avoided later if Kirito told Leafa his exact motive right now. Kirito shouldn't be wasting so much time talking to Leafa. All the information that Leafa told Kirito should be readily available online. He can read it himself and go directly to the world tree. Kirito thanks Leafa and is about to leave. Leafa decides to help Kirito accomplish his goal since he won't be able to do it alone and says that she can take him to the world tree. As previously explained, Leafa shouldn't trust some guy she literally met a few minutes ago. Leafa already paid Kirito back for saving her by buying him a drink and a meal. She doesn't owe Kirito anything. Leafa asks Kirito to meet up at the inn tomorrow at 3 p.m. sharp since she has to log out now. Sugo has a giant poster of Leafa on the ceiling in her room. If Kirito ever walked into Sugo's room, then he would discover the truth about her. In Alfheim Online, Kirito heads into a room upstairs and he logs out while Yui sleeps next to him. Kirito promises Yui that they'll save Asuna and buy a house together somewhere again. Meanwhile, we see how Asuna is trapped in a giant birdcage at the top of the world tree. She's being held there against her will by the game master and system admin Oberon, which is Sugo's character. Oberon is the fairy king, and Asuna is his queen and bride Titania. Why does Asuna's in-game appearance look exactly like her real-world appearance? We were told that players' avatars in Alfheim Online get a random appearance. Asuna says that she'll never give her heart to Oberon. The only things that she'll give to Oberon are disgust and hatred, nothing more. Asuna shouldn't say these kinds of things to Oberon. In order to survive a hostage situation, you have to cooperate with the captor and stop resisting. It's highly likely that you'll get hurt or killed if you refuse to comply. This isn't even Asuna's real body, so she shouldn't take everything so seriously. Oberon tells Asuna that he adjusted the routers and grabbed 300 players when they were logged out of Sword Art Online to use as guinea pigs. That doesn't make sense. All the players should have been logged out of Sword Art Online at the same time when the game ended. Oberon is planning to take control of the 300 trapped Sword Art Online players' minds and use them as test subjects to influence their thoughts, emotions, and memories. Oberon is doing this in secret with a small team, so that's why Asuna's father doesn't know about it. This is a pretty complicated operation, and several other people are involved, so it's a wonder how nobody at Wrecked Progress has discovered what Sugo is really doing. The bookkeepers at Wrecked Progress should have noticed something strange. Oberon is planning to sell his research to an American corporation and get rich. Asuna threatens to report Oberon to the police as soon as she gets back to the real world, but he claims that he can alter her memories too. Oberon shouldn't be revealing his master plan to Asuna. Sure, Oberon doesn't expect Asuna to escape the birdcage and go to the police, but what if she does? There's no point risking it. Oberon should at least wait until his mind control technology is finished, so he can alter Asuna's memories right after telling her his goal. Now it makes sense how Sugo plans to marry Asuna in the real world. He'll alter Asuna's memories and make her love him, so when Asuna wakes up from her coma, she'll agree to marry Sugo. Oberon has to leave in hopes that Asuna will be a bit more submissive the next time they meet. Asuna tries to look at the keypad code, but her vision is pixelated and she can't see anything. There are thousands of possible combinations, and we don't know how many numbers are needed, so it's highly unlikely that Asuna will guess the correct combination by chance. Asuna needs to find another way to escape. Asuna hopes that Kirito will come to save her. She can probably escape herself. Asuna should be able to squeeze through the bars of the birdcage. The gaps seem big enough for her body to fit through. There are no invisible walls or barriers surrounding the birdcage either, since we later see Asuna dropping an item out of it. We also saw birds flying out. Asuna has wings, so she could fly away after freeing herself from the birdcage. Episode 4 to the World Tree. Sugo remembers the reason why she started playing virtual reality games. It's because she wanted to see why Kirito loved them so much. Sugo used to hate virtual reality games with a vengeance and blamed them for stealing Kirito away from her. However, Sugo got curious and decided to try playing a virtual reality game herself. Sugo didn't know what to expect at first, but after a while she ended up loving Alfheim Online due to the amazing flying aspect. Sugo finally got it and understood why Kirito loved the virtual world. This is the exact reason why Sugo should tell Kirito that she's playing Alfheim Online. It doesn't make sense why Sugo is keeping her hobby hidden from Kirito when she knows that they have a common interest in playing virtual reality MMORPGs. She could tell him about the game that she's been playing, and he might join her. Sugo meets Rekon in real life, and he's a shy boy named Nagata Shinichi. Sugo informs Nagata that she's going to help Kirito head towards the World Tree later in Alfheim Online. Sugo and Nagata didn't need to meet up in real life to have this quick conversation. It would have been much easier and convenient to simply private message each other in game. Sugo goes home and uses her Atmosphere to log into Alfheim Online. Leafa meets up with Kirito at the inn again, and she shows him where to buy better gear. Kirito purchases some equipment and a black iron greatsword. Why does this random shop in Sylph territory even sell weapons for Spriggans? There's magic in Alfheim Online, so Kirito shouldn't waste his money on melee weapons like swords. Magic is better since you can attack from a distance distance, and there's a far greater variety of tactics. Kirito and Leafa go to a tower, since it's better to start at a higher altitude if you're flying long distances. Kirito and Leafa are about to leave Sylvain, but they encounter Sigurd, a member of Leafa's party. He's mad because she isn't coming with them. Sigurd is right to feel angry and disappointed. Leafa barely even knows Kirito, and she chose to go with him, instead of her friends and comrades that she's known for a while. Plus, if Leafa leaves the party, then she'll damage their reputation. Kirito stands up for Leafa, and tells Sigurd that party members aren't items. Kirito should keep quiet instead of speaking up. He's in Sylph territory, and as we learned before, the Sylph players can attack him, but he can't attack back, so he's very vulnerable and shouldn't do anything to provoke the other players. Kirito won't be able to do anything if Sigurd decides to kill him. Leafa states that Kirito is her new partner, and warns Sigurd to leave him alone. Leafa chooses to abandon her party and become a renegade. She promises that she'll never come back here. Sigurd wants to fight Kirito, but he backs down because this isn't the time or place. There are too many people watching, so it's going to look bad if Sigurd kills Kirito in front of them. Sigurd shouldn't really care what the other players think about him. Alfheim Online is all about PKing, so Sigurd should attack and kill Kirito. Leafa apologizes for dragging Kirito into all this drama, but he's cool with it. Kirito wonders what a renegade is, and Leafa tells him that it's someone who abandons their own territory. If you get branded as a renegade, then the other players will all look down on you, but Leafa doesn't really care about that, because she's been thinking of leaving for a while now. Leafa shouldn't abandon her own race to help this random guy. Leafa needs to think about this in the long run. If she's a renegade, then the game is going to be very difficult for her to play, since none of the other Sylphs will want to team up with her anymore, and it'll be hard to find other players to do group activities with. Leafa would only be able to group up with other renegades. Yui doesn't understand why humans act so horribly to each other, when all they want is companionship. Leafa is confused and asks Kirito if all private pixies act like that, but Kirito replies that it's just Yui, since she's a weirdo. Rekon comes and wants to go with Leafa. However, he has to look into something first, and decides to stay in Sigurd's party a little longer. Rekon advises Kirito to keep an eye on Leafa, since she has a habit of getting in trouble, and Kirito promises to do so. Afterwards, Kirito and Leafa fly off to the World Tree together. Kirito and Yui know that Rekon has a crush on Leafa and likes her a lot. Leafa is extremely embarrassed when she's asked if she feels the same way towards Rekon, and replies that she doesn't know. Back in the birdcage at the top of the World Tree, Oberon continues to harass and torment Asuna. This isn't Asuna's real body though, because she's in a virtual world. As Oberon stated in the show, Asuna should loosen up and she shouldn't have to take this so seriously. Asuna needs to comply with her captor if she wants to survive this hostage situation. Asuna declares that she won't stay in this cage forever, and Kirito will come to save her. Oberon mentions that he met Kirito in the real world the other day in Asuna's hospital room. Oberon believes that Kirito doesn't have the guts to put the nerve gear on ever again, so he won't come and rescue Asuna. But the atmosphere exists, so Kirito doesn't even need to use a nerve gear to play Alfheim Online in the first place. The atmosphere is much safer to use, and there isn't the threat of real death. Oberon also severely underestimates Kirito. People who experience a traumatic event don't stop doing something if they truly love it. For instance, Aaron Ralston got into a climbing accident in April 2003. He was solo descending in the Blue John Canyon in southeastern Utah. Aaron accidentally dislodged a boulder, and his right wrist was pinned to the side of the canyon wall. Aaron had to break his forearm and amputate it with a dull pocket knife to escape. Despite this, Aaron continued mountaineering, and he was the first person to ascend all of Colorado's 14ers solo in winter. The 2010 movie 127 Hours is based on what happened to Aaron. Another example would be Bethany Hamilton. Her left arm was bitten off by a shark during surfing when she was 13, but Bethany returned to surfing and is a professional. The 2011 movie Soul Surfer is based on what happened to Bethany. A lot of people have gotten into car accidents, but that didn't stop them from driving. Oberon has to get going, and Asuna is happy to find out that Kirito is still alive. Asuna looks into the reflection of the mirror. As Oberon is typing the keypad combination code to leave, she's able to memorize the correct combination, which is 81132329. This is pretty clever. If Asuna looks directly at the keypad, then her vision will become pixelated, so this was a nice little loophole. In the meantime, Kirito and Leafa fight a few monsters. They aren't able to fly much longer, so they arrive at a landing point in the neutral region. There's a mountain nearby, but nobody can get past the altitude limit or fly over, so they have to go through the caves. It's the toughest part of the trip. Leafa has never been this far herself. It would be smart to look up some guides or tutorials on the internet if Leafa has never been here. Kirito and Leafa shouldn't go in blind, since dying would cost them several hours, and they don't have much time to waste. Kirito and Leafa then take turns logging out and resting, while the other person keeps watch and guards the other player's avatar. Why doesn't your avatar disappear when you log out of the game? Leafa logs out first. In the real world, Sugo tries asking Kirito what he wants for dinner, but there's no response. Sugo is about to go into Kirito's room, but she thinks otherwise since Kirito might be sleeping. Sugo should have gone into Kirito's room. She would have seen that Kirito is is using a nerve gear to play Alfheim online. This would solve a lot of problems later on. It's 7 p.m. in the real world, so it's highly unlikely that Kirito has gone to sleep so early. Sugo makes a sandwich for Kirito, and then she takes a bath. Sugo realizes that she's fallen in love with Kirito in the game, and is excited to go to new places with him. Sugo is unaware that the Kirito in Alfheim online is also the same Kirito she knows in real life. This shouldn't be the case though. As previously explained, Kirito sounds the exact same, and his appearance is very similar. Sugo should recognize who Kirito is, and Leafa barely even knows Kirito in game. Why did she immediately fall in love with him? I don't understand how nearly every girl Kirito comes across ends up falling madly in love with him. Leafa logs back into Alfheim online. Kirito tricks her into eating a really spicy food. Kirito logs out and Yui talks with Leafa. Yui explains to Leafa why she calls Kirito her daddy. Leafa asks if Yui likes Kirito, but she doesn't understand the question. Before Yui and Leafa are able to extend the conversation, Kirito logs back into the game and says that his family left him something to eat. It doesn't make sense why Kirito said family instead of sister, since his adoptive parents aren't around too much. If Kirito said that his sister left him something to eat, then it would have tipped Leafa off that something was wrong, because she made a sandwich for Kirito. Kirito feels watched, but Yui doesn't sense any players nearby. Leafa says that it's possible someone put a tracer on them, which is a kind of tracking magic that looks like a small animal or insect, but you can dispel it if you can find it. If the caster's magic spell is high, then they can track you from far away. It would take a long time to find a tracker in a field of this size. If Leafa was aware of tracers, then she should have checked for one the moment they left the Sylph territory. It would have been a lot easier to find since they weren't in a large field yet. Leafa shouldn't have waited until now. Kirito and Leafa fly away. We see how there is indeed a tracer, in the form of a small bat, following them in a large group of salamanders. Episode 5, the Lagru Corridor. Kirito and Leafa go through the cave. Kirito uses his Brigand night vision magic so they can see better in the darkness. Leafa notifies Kirito that you have to learn what the words of power mean for the spells, and then match them with the effects of the magic in order to memorize the spells. The higher ranked spells have about 20 words. This is really complicated and convoluted. In normal MMORPGs, you simply click a button or two to cast a spell. You don't need to memorize any complex phrases in a different language. Alfheim Online wouldn't really be a fun game to play if you have to do all this homework. It would be hard to focus in battle when you have to say 20 words to cast a spell. Leafa receives a message from Rekon, telling her that his suspicions were spot on and to be careful. Yui suddenly picks up movement behind them. Kirito and Leafa were followed by 12 players. Leafa uses her magic to create a fake wall so they can take cover. Kirito and Leafa can talk, but they have to be really quiet and whisper so they don't break the spell. This is a smart idea. Kirito and Leafa are vastly outnumbered 12 to 2, so they probably aren't going to win a fight against 12 players. Hiding is a much better option. Leafa breaks the cover and destroys the tracer. She could have just stayed hidden with Kirito until the players left the place. Kirito and Leafa most likely wouldn't have gotten discovered. Kirito and Leafa run to a bridge. Leafa says that the bat was a fire element familiar, so they're being tracked by the salamanders. Kirito and Leafa are about to get away, but they get cornered by the salamanders. There's an earth magic barrier and Kirito can't destroy it. You can't fly in the Lagru corridor, but it might be possible to climb over this earth magic barrier. Kirito and Leafa can't jump into the lake and swim around it, because the water is full of high-level monsters. Only the Undine race is capable of taking those monsters on. The only option left is to fight. This is exactly why Kirito and Leafa should have continued hiding. Kirito tells Leafa to stay behind and focus on healing him, so he can fight harder and not worry about his HP. Kirito tries to take on the 12 salamanders by himself, but he isn't able to break their formation. They have tanks at the front, healers behind them, and then the mages all the way in the back. Kirito is fighting alone, so there's not much he can do. There are ways to break a shield wall, but not on your own. Maybe Leafa should fight with Kirito instead of staying behind to heal him. Kirito could distract the tanks at the front, while Leafa sneaks behind and kills the mages. Kirito is way too arrogant and overconfident. Kirito is new to Alfheim Online, so he shouldn't expect to beat a group of players on his own. Unlike Sword Art Online, Kirito isn't the best player in this game. There are no levels in Alfheim Online, so it's not like Kirito's invincible because he's much higher level. Leafa tells Kirito that they should give up. If they lose, it just means they have to fly a couple extra hours, so it's not a big deal. However, Kirito refuses to concede. As long as he's alive, Kirito won't let anyone in his party die again, which is a callback to episode 3 of the Aincrad arc, where Kirito's guild members from the Moonlit Black Cats were all killed after triggering a trap in a treasure room. Kirito doesn't need to take this so seriously. Sure, flying a couple extra hours will be a bit inconvenient, but players in Alfheim Online simply respawn when they die. They don't also die in real life, so it's not much of an issue. Kirito attacks the salamanders once more, but it's no use. He still can't do anything. Leafa uses a spell to shield Kirito from the incoming attacks. Kirito then uses an illusion spell and transforms himself into a huge monster that resembles the Gleam-Eyes floor boss from Aincrad. In this form, Kirito easily defeats all the salamanders. Kirito should have done this this at the start of the fight. There was no reason to wait until now to use his trump card, especially since Kirito could have gotten killed. Perhaps Kirito could have destroyed the earth magic barrier in his monster form. It doesn't make sense how Kirito was able to single-handedly beat the salamanders. We were repeatedly told by Leafa that illusion magic is not very helpful in combat, yet it was very successful for Kirito. Kirito transforms back into his normal avatar. He spares one of the salamanders to bribe them for information, in exchange for all the items and money he got from killing the other salamanders. The salamander player tells Kirito and Leafa who sent them, and that something big is about to go down. Leafa deduces that the salamanders are going to try to clear the world tree. However, the salamander player says that he doubts it, because they need ancient weapon class equipment and can't afford it. Kirito is a man of his word, and gives the salamander player the items and money he promised. Leafa asks Kirito about his monster transformation, but he can't really remember anything. Kirito playfully bites Leafa's hand, and gets slapped in the face as a punishment. Kirito definitely deserved it. You shouldn't go around biting people. Kirito and Leafa make it through the cave and end up in the town of Legru. Leafa checks her friends list and sees that Rekon isn't online. She thinks that Rekon might be asleep. Leafa logs out of Alfheim online to contact Nagata in real life. Suguha gets a call from Nagata. He says that Sigurd betrayed Sakuya, the Sylph commander. Sigurd is a double agent, and he's been working as a spy for the salamanders, probably for a while now. Rekon used a transparency spell, and followed Sigurd all day to a meeting in the sewers with some salamanders. Rekon accidentally gave away his position, and he got paralyzed by a poison arrow. That's why he had to log out and contact Suguha in real life instead of in-game. Usually in games you can't log out if you're in the middle of combat. Rekon also mentions that Sigurd is going to attack the Sylphs and the Catsies at the meeting in the neutral territory today. Leafa logs back into Alfheim online and tells Kirito that she has to leave, because there's something she has to take care of right away. Kirito wonders what it is, but Leafa doesn't have time to explain, and mentions that she won't be coming back here either. Kirito chooses to go with Leafa, and tells her to explain what's happening on the way there. Since they can't fly, Kirito and Leafa run to the Valley of Butterflies, which is where the meeting is taking place. Along the way, Leafa informs Kirito what she learned from Nagata. If the salamanders attack the Sylphs and the Cassies, then they can stop the alliance from forming. It's also a good way to get rich, because you can get 30% of the money if you manage to take out the leader of a territory. You can invade the hometown for 10 days, and charge whatever tax you want. These game mechanics are so broken. Players could create alternate accounts of a different race, and leak information to their friends about where the leader of the territory is. Then they could kill the leader and collect the money. As Leafa stated in the show, this isn't Kirito's problem, so Kirito doesn't need to get involved and risk his life. Chances are they won't make it back alive if they go to the meeting. If Kirito and Leafa die, then they have to start over from Swolvain again. Kirito shouldn't bother to help Leafa. He doesn't have any time to waste. Kirito has to rescue Asuna soon, or else Sugo will marry her in real life, so he shouldn't be doing other irrelevant stuff. This conflict could take a long time to resolve, and Kirito can't spend that kind of time on this side mission. Leafa mentions that if the salamanders are successful, then they'll get the power and resources they need to make it to the top of the world tree. The salamanders might hire Kirito as a mercenary since he's a Spriggan. Kirito could kill Leafa, and she wouldn't hold it against him. Kirito admits that he would never attack a friend for his own personal benefit, and couldn't live with himself if he did that. But can Kirito live with himself if he fails to save Asuna, and she gets married to Sugo? Probably not, so Kirito needs to do whatever it takes to get to the top of the world tree and rescue Asuna. Working with the salamanders is the best option for Kirito right now. Kirito literally met Leafa yesterday. He should care about Asuna a lot more than her. If I was in Kirito's position, and I had to kill this random player I met in game to rescue my girlfriend, then I wouldn't hesitate to do that. It's a no-brainer. Leafa thinks that Kirito sounds pretty cool. I'd have to disagree with Leafa here. Kirito sounds really edgy and pretentious. He takes everything way too seriously. Kirito grabs Leafa's hand, and they quickly run past several strong monsters and out of the cave. So apparently Kirito is also secretly the Flash or something. There's no way the developers of Alfheim Online designed it so you can bypass the powerful monsters by simply running past them. And if Kirito was so quick, then he should have used his super speed during the fight against the salamanders. He probably could have killed all the salamanders before they had the chance to react and defend themselves. Episode 6, General of the Blazing Flame. Kirito and Leafa start flying now that they're out of the cave. Leafa tells Kirito that the meeting is happening northwest inside a mountain. It'll start in 20 minutes, so Kirito and Leafa both increase their speed. Kirito and Leafa still aren't going to make it at this rate. Yui detects 68 players incoming, which is probably the salamander attack squad. There are 14 more players on the plateau, which are the Sylph and Catsie diplomats. The two groups of players will make contact in 50 seconds. Leafa says that she'll try to save her leader Sakuya, and tells Kirito to get out of here and head for the world tree. But Kirito says that running away from a fight isn't his style, and chooses to stay. Kirito should just go to the world tree. He has other stuff to do and this isn't his problem. It doesn't make sense why Kirito is wasting time helping Leafa. Leafa when he needs to rescue Asuna. The salamanders are about to attack the sylphs and the catseas, but Kirito intervenes in the nick of time. Kirito tells the salamanders to stand down. He talks to the salamander commander General Eugene. Kirito lies and says that he's an ambassador for the Spriggan and Undine Alliance. He tells Eugene that if the meeting is interrupted, then the Spriggans, Undines, sylphs, and catseas will all team up against the salamanders. Eugene doesn't believe Kirito since he's all alone in his crappy gear. Eugene is right to suspect Kirito. He definitely needed to come up with a better excuse. Eugene challenges Kirito to a one-on-one duel. If Kirito can survive for 30 seconds, then Eugene will believe who Kirito says he is. Sakuya tells Leafa that this is bad because Eugene is using the demonic sword Graham. You need a two-handed sword skill of 950 to equip it. In terms of sheer power, Eugene is said to be the strongest player in Alfheim Online. Eugene is the younger brother of Mortimer, the leader of the salamanders. They're also brothers in real life too. Eugene's demonic sword Graham has a bonus skill called Ethereal Shift. It can phase through whenever someone tries to block it with a shield or sword. This is why using magic would be better. Eugene's demonic sword Graham wouldn't be able to phase through any magic attacks. Kirito could also attack from afar and not within melee distance. Kirito and Eugene fight for a bit, but Eugene is way too powerful. Kirito informs Eugene that the 30 seconds are up. However, Eugene has changed his mind and decides to kill Kirito anyway. Kirito is much weaker than Eugene, and his gear isn't as good. Instead of using melee weapons, Kirito could transform into another monster and overwhelm Eugene like he did to the group of salamanders in the previous episode. Since this is an aerial fight, Kirito should transform into a giant dragon or something. Kirito should also be much quicker than Eugene, so he should use his speed to his advantage. Kirito uses a smokescreen and takes Leafa's sword. This is yet another example of how illusion magic is useful in battle. Kirito wins the fight against Eugene by dual wielding. There's no dual wielding unique skill in Alfheim Online though, so Kirito shouldn't be able to do this. Additionally, Eugene's demonic sword Graham should have phased through Leafa's sword. This fight scene further proves that Kirito is way too overpowered. Kirito defeated the game's strongest player, despite the fact that he literally started playing Alfheim Online yesterday. If I started playing Fortnite yesterday, and I had never played the game before, then I wouldn't stand a chance against Fortnite's best players. It wouldn't even be close. And yet Kirito easily beat Eugene. Eugene responds and praises Kirito's fighting ability. Eugene is still hesitant to withdraw his troops. Kagemune is present, and tells Eugene that Kirito was the one who wiped out his party yesterday. Kagemune also lies and says that Kirito was traveling with an Undine. Eugene retreats with the other salamanders for now. Kirito and Leafa explain what's going on with Sigurd. Sakuya speculates that Sigurd was dissatisfied with things, and couldn't accept that the sylphs fell in power to the salamanders. Power is very important to a player like Sigurd, and he must have become a spy for the salamanders because of the new 5.0 update that's going to be released soon. A reincarnation system is rumored to be added to the game. Mortimer probably made Sigurd an offer to reincarnate him as a salamander if he killed the leader of the sylphs. Why do you need other people's permission to change races? Usually in MMORPGs you can do that on your own. The leader of the catseas, Alicia Rue, uses her dark magic skill and opens a moonlight mirror to Sigurd. Sigurd is very surprised to see that Sakuya is still alive. Sakuya banishes Sigurd from the sylph territory for betraying the race, so he can wander the neutral territory as a renegade. Sakuya thanks Kirito for saving her. Kirito admits that he was lying about the whole Spriggan and Undine alliance. Kirito says that he's simply a friendly neighborhood mercenary, which is obviously a ripoff of Spider-Man. Sakuya and Alicia Rue both seduce Kirito and want him to become a mercenary for their respective races. Kirito appreciates the offer, but has to decline because he's going to the World Tree with Leafa. Leafa says that she's planning on leaving the sylphs, but she wants to return to Sylvain at some point. That doesn't make sense. Leafa can't go back to Sylvain if she's a renegade, so what's the point of leaving the sylphs? Sakuya is grateful for what Kirito did and wants to find a way to pay him back. The reason why the sylphs and the catseas met today is because they were planning to go to the World Tree as well. Kirito and Leafa want to go with them. Kirito explains that he has to get to the top of the World Tree since someone he knows is waiting for him. Sakuya wonders if it's Oberon, but Kirito replies that it's someone he can't reach in real life. Kirito should tell Sakuya the truth right now. There's no reason to be so secretive here. The sylphs and the catseas might want to help Kirito even more if he tells them what's really going on here and they understand the sense of urgency. It'll take some time for Sakuya and Alicia Rue to gear up the raiding party and storm the World Tree. Kirito gives a bunch of his money to Alicia Rue. If Kirito had all this money, then he should have bought himself some better gear first. For example, if Kirito had an extra sword, then he wouldn't need to borrow Leafa's sword and could have been dual wielding at the start of the fight against Eugene. Where did Kirito get all this money in the first place? Aincrad had a completely different currency than Alfheim Online, and Kirito deleted all of his corrupted items that got transferred over from Sword Art Online. Sakuya and Alicia Rue thank Kirito and head off to buy some gear. When they're ready, they'll message Kirito. Leafa can't believe that Kirito pulled this off. Yui is mad at Kirito for flirting with Sakuya and Alicia Rue, but Kirito can't help it though since he's a guy. Leafa asks Yui if she's a problem for Kirito, since she's also a girl, but Yui says that she's safe. Kirito explains that Leafa is easy to get along with, and doesn't seem like a girl. Oof, Leafa got friend-zoned pretty badly. She should take the hint and stop crushing on Kirito so hard. He clearly doesn't have any romantic feelings towards her. Kirito and Leafa continue heading towards the World Tree. Kirito is lucky that this side mission didn't take up too much time. It could have lasted a lot longer if Kirito wasn't so overpowered and defeated Eugene. In the meantime, Asuna uses the keypad combination code she memorized to open the gate and escape the birdcage. She promises Kirito that she'll never give up. Episode 7, The Truth About Alfheim. Kirito and Leafa reach the capital Arun, which is the center of Alfheim and the biggest city in this world. There's an emergency scheduled maintenance shutdown occurring soon, from 4 AM to 3 PM. All players need to log out no later than 10 minutes before shutdown. But what if players don't log out? Would they get stuck in the game like Ainzul Gon in the Overlord anime series? Kirito and Leafa decide to find a super cheap inn and log out. If Kirito didn't give away all his money to Alicia Rue earlier, then they could afford to log out at a nicer inn. Kirito and Leafa don't even need to go to an inn. We saw how you can log out anywhere in Alfheim Online. In real life, Suguha tells Kirito that she was fooling around online last night and didn't get to bed until 4. Suguha should just tell Kirito that she's playing Alfheim Online. As explained before, this would solve a lot of issues later on. Other than for the plot, there's no good reason why Suguha is keeping this a secret from Kirito, because she knows that he loves playing MMORPGs. Moreover, Kirito should realize that Suguha is playing Alfheim Online, because 4 AM is when the scheduled maintenance occurred. Why else would Suguha stay awake so late and say that she didn't go to bed until exactly 4? Kirito tells Suguha to turn around, and he pours freezing cold water down her back. Suguha is upset about Kirito's prank, and tells him that he owes her a green tea raspberry parfait to make up for it. Suguha goes with Kirito to visit Asuna at the hospital. On the way there, Kirito says that he's going to a special temporary school in the city, with other students who are also trapped in Sword Art Online. Kirito thinks that this was done so the government could keep an eye on the former Sword Art Online players. Kirito hasn't studied for 2 years, so his grades aren't very good. Suguha offers to become Kirito's tutor, but the learning material is way too complicated for her. Kirito and Suguha arrive at the hospital and go to Asuna's room. Suguha is surprised to see that Asuna used her real-life name for her avatar, but how does Suguha know what Asuna's name was in Sword Art Online? That kind of information is supposed to be confidential, and as previously mentioned, if Suguha knows Asuna's name, then how does she not know Kirito's name? Kirito should be more well known than Asuna, since he was the one who beat Heathcliff in the end and freed everyone from the death game. Kirito introduces Suguha to Asuna. Kirito says that Asuna was called the Lightning Flash, and he could never match her speed in battle. I highly doubt that considering we've seen Kirito's super speed. Plus he needed to have the fastest reaction speed in the game to get the dual wielding unique skill in Sword Art Online, so there's no way Asuna is quicker than Kirito. Suguha shouldn't have come with Kirito to the hospital. It's only going to upset her more, since she still can't be in a relationship with Kirito. Meanwhile, Asuna runs around the World Tree and sees an opening. She heads inside, opens a sliding door, and enters a long, brightly lit hallway. There's a convenient map on the wall, and Asuna tries to see if there's a console where she can log out, but goes to an experimentation hangar instead. It doesn't make sense why there's a random map here. The employees of Wreck Progress who are part of Sugo's team should try to keep everything hidden, instead of leaving things in plain sight where anyone can stumble across it. The developers of Alfheim Online should block off the experimentation area, so regular players like Asuna can't access it. Asuna discovers where the minds of the 300 trapped Sword Art Online players are being kept, so it seems like there's only one server in Alfheim Online, or else Sugo and his team would simply put this on a private server that normal players can't access. 2 of Sugo's assistants enter the experimentation hangar, so Asuna hides. Why do these assistants look like slug monsters instead of normal people? What is the benefit of being a slug monster here? Asuna tries to log out of Alfheim Online by using the system console in the room. However, the assistants catch her. Asuna should have been a bit faster. She was nearly able to press the log out button and just needed a few more seconds. Didn't Kirito say that Asuna was the Lightning Flash? She doesn't seem to be very quick. Asuna could also try stalling the assistants. We see that players will automatically get logged out in 2 minutes if nothing is done. Asuna could have stayed hidden and waited until the assistants left the room to use the system console and log out. She needed to be a bit more patient. Asuna should have tried looking for a system console to begin with, instead of going into the experiment room. As long as she can escape, she can go to the police and tell them what Sugo is doing. Trying to log out should be Asuna's first priority. Asuna says that Sugo is a very good friend of hers, and she has his permission to be here, but the assistants know that Asuna is lying. Asuna tells the assistants that what they're doing is wrong and illegal. However, they claim that they're just showing people wonderful dreams games. One of the assistants logs out to contact Sugo in real life. Since there's only one assistant remaining, Asuna should attempt to free herself. She could bite the tentacles and try to escape. The slug monster had his pain absorber active, so he doesn't want to get hurt in the game, or he'll feel pain in real life as well. The assistant logs back into the game and Asuna is brought back to the birdcage. The passcode has changed too, but Asuna managed to steal a keycard from the system console. Alfheim Online's error detection program should find out that something is wrong here. Asuna could have looked in the mirror again when the assistants were changing the passcode. Asuna vows to never give up and find another way to get out of here. Kirito and Leafa log back into Alfheim Online. Leafa starts crying due to the heartbreak and Kirito gives her a pep talk. Leafa is in love with her brother, but she knows that she can't ever tell anyone about it and has to hide her true feelings so she can forget about them someday. Why does Suguha even love Kirito? He's always been distant to her in real life and has never really shown any affection towards Suguha. Marrying your cousin was a common thing that happened in Japan a long time ago, especially for arranged marriages, but people don't really do that anymore. So while it's legal, it's pretty weird that Suguha wants to get with Kirito. Kirito and Leafa walk towards the world tree together. There are tons of other players in Arun. The different races are all getting along very well. Kirito wonders if anyone has ever tried climbing up the side of the world tree, but Leafa explains that the whole perimeter of the trunk is off limits, so a player can't even get close enough to try. You can't fly straight up either, since the flight limit of your wings would expire before you even got halfway. The game masters also fixed it so players can't launch themselves on top of one another like a rocket. An invisible barrier was added above the clouds to prevent this from happening again. Kirito and Leafa head to the base of the trunk. Yui is able to detect Asuna's presence. Her coordinates are above them in the tree. Kirito immediately flies away on his own. Yui should have said Asuna's name instead of calling her mommy. Leafa would realize that Kirito is trying to save Asuna, and it's her brother that she's been playing with this whole time. Episode 8, The Grand Quest. Leafa flies after Kirito and wonders if the person he's searching for is that important. Kirito hits an invisible barrier, and he can't get past it no matter how hard he tries. Kirito can't really do anything in this scenario. Invisible barriers are put in games for a reason, so Kirito needs to find another way to the top of the world tree. Even if Kirito could somehow bypass this invisible barrier, he won't be able to fly all the way to the top on his own, because as Leafa explained before, the flight limit of your wings would expire before you even got halfway, so there's no point trying. This is not gonna work either way. Asuna hears Yui's voice after she used warning mode to contact her. Asuna drops the keycard out of the birdcage and Kirito catches it. As mentioned beforehand, Asuna should squeeze through the bars of the birdcage. We can see that the gaps are big enough for her body to fit through. If you can get your head and shoulders to fit through something, then your whole body should be able to fit through as well. But no, it seems like Asuna has to be a damsel in distress and patiently wait for her hero Kirito to come and save her. Leafa doesn't know what the keycard does and has never seen an item like it before. Kirito isn't able to access the menu, but Yui says that the card is a system admin access code. You need the right console to access the GM controls, and the way to find it is through the system menu. Unfortunately, Yui can't bring that up. Why do the GMs need a keycard to access the system? They should already have special modified accounts that let them do that. They don't need a physical item to access the GM controls or anything. Kirito and Yui deduce that the keycard must be from Asuna, since items like that don't just randomly drop out of the sky. Alfheim Online is such a badly designed game though. I wouldn't be surprised if things like that did randomly drop out of the sky. Kirito puts the keycard in his pocket, and he goes to the base of the world tree to accept the grand quest and try to fight the NPC guardians all by himself. The NPC guardians spawn too quickly. Kirito is outnumbered and dies. Kirito clearly wasn't thinking. Alfheim Online has been out for about a year now, and nobody has been able to reach the top of the world tree, not even the toughest raid groups. There's no way Kirito can do this alone. If it was that easy to solo the grand quest, then it would have been done already thousands of times. Kirito is used to being overpowered in Sword Art Online and soloing floor bosses, so he got way too cocky and overconfident. Kirito could have at least used his illusion magic here. For example, if he transformed into a giant monster, then maybe Kirito would have a better chance of fighting against the NPC guardians, or a smokescreen spell to buy himself some time to recover and heal in between attacks. Kirito should also use area of effect magic attacks here, since melee only allows him to target one of the NPC guardians at a time. Kirito could have taken Leafa's sword again so he could dual wield, like during the fight against Eugene. Additionally, if Rekkan was present, then he could cast his transparency spell on Kirito. Perhaps Kirito would be able to sneak past all the NPC guardians undetected. You don't actually have to defeat all the NPC guardians. You just need to find a way to get past them. Kirito should have asked Leafa to help him. She could stay behind and heal Kirito while he fights the NPC guardians. Kirito can't believe that he died. He now understands that he's not invincible, and there are limits in this game. It's good to see Kirito finally learning a lesson in modesty. He's very arrogant and underestimates everything, so it's about time he becomes a little more humble. Leafa enters the dome and narrowly escapes with Kirito's remain light. This isn't that hard of a quest if players can just leave whenever they feel like it. Usually in MMORPGs you can't teleport or leave a difficult boss fight. The only ways to move forward are to either beat the boss or die and respawn. Leafa revives Kirito outside and he thanks her. I assume that Kirito would have respawned far away, so that's why Leafa revived him here. Otherwise they could wait for the respawn timer to finish, and Kirito could respawn on his own. Kirito doesn't want to cause Leafa any more trouble, and says that he can do this on his own. But Kirito can't beat the NPC guardians by himself. He already tried and failed miserably, so why does Kirito suddenly think that he can do it now? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, and expecting a different result. Kirito should wait for the sylphs and the catsies to finish buying their gear. They said that they would message Kirito when they were done. Then they could all team up and fight the NPC guardians together. They would have a much higher chance of beating the grand quest, since it was designed so that one race can't do it alone. So if 3 races are working together, then it should be possible to successfully complete the quest. Kirito needs to be a bit more patient. He still has some time left before Sugo and Asuna's wedding, so there's no need to be so reckless now. Dying and having to restart from Sylvain again would cost Kirito even more time, so he needs to work smarter, not harder. Kirito also seemed to be on good terms with Eugene. He could ask for his help as well, and Eugene could bring his army of salamanders. Kirito could say that he doesn't care about the reward of being able to fly forever, and will give it to another race. Leafa tries to convince Kirito to stop fighting the NPC guardians alone, and go back to how he was. However, Kirito goes anyway, and says that he has to get to the top of the world tree to see Asuna again. Leafa finally realizes who Kirito is, and claims that it's not fair. It sure took her long enough. This would have actually been a shocking M. Night Shyamalan level plot twist if the audience wasn't already aware of who Kirito and Leafa were this whole time. If they made it like Bruce Willis in the Sixth Sense movie, then it would have been interesting, but unfortunately that's not the case here. Leafa is devastated and logs out of the game. This is yet another example of how you don't need to go to an inn to log out of Alfheim Online. Suguha starts crying in real life. Kirito also logs out of Alfheim Online and tries to talk with Suguha. Suguha tells Kirito to go away and leave her alone. Kirito wants to know what's wrong, and assumes that Suguha is mad at him for using the nerve gear again. Suguha says that's not the reason and she opens her door. Suguha confesses that she loves Kirito, and for the last 2 years she knew they weren't actual siblings. That doesn't make it any better. Kirito and Suguha are cousins, so they're still related, and it's pretty bizarre how Suguha loves Kirito. It's not like, oh, if they're siblings they can't be in a relationship together, but if they're cousins that's totally fine. Then again, the studio that animated Sword Art Online, A1 Pictures, also brought you Oreimo and Iromanga Sensei, so I guess loving your siblings or cousins is normal for them. Suguha thinks that Kirito stopped doing kendo, and pushed her away because she isn't his real sister. This again makes you wonder why and how Suguha fell in love with Kirito in the first place. As Suguha said, they were never very close. Suguha was sad and jealous when she found out about Asuna. Suguha thought that if she fell in love with the Kirito in game, then she could forget about her love for Kirito in real life. This might have worked if it weren't for the fact that they were the same person. There are plenty of boys at Suguha's school that like her. For example, Nagata clearly has a huge crush on Suguha. Why doesn't Suguha just start a relationship with Nagata, someone who's actually interested in her, instead of trying to get with her cousin who isn't romantically attracted to her? Suguha has plenty of options. It's not like she's super ugly and none of the other boys like her. I'm sure most guys at Suguha's school would be happy to have her as their girlfriend. It doesn't even make sense why Suguha fell in love with Kirito in Alfheim Online. They literally met 2 days ago, and Suguha is already head over heels for this random player she knows absolutely nothing about. Kirito could be a serial killer in real life or something. Kirito is sorry and Suguha closes her door. Episode 9, Bonds. Suguha wishes that Kirito was still a jerk to her, so that she would have never fallen in love with him. There's a flashback scene to when Kirito was 10 years old. He found out that he wasn't Suguha's brother. Kirito felt weird, like he didn't fit in with anyone. But why? Kirito is still related to Suguha. He got adopted by his aunt and uncle, so it's not like they're complete strangers. A lot of people in real life are really close to their aunts, uncles, and cousins. Kirito became detached from his adoptive family, and spent all his time playing online games alone in his room. Nobody knows anything about anyone in the virtual world, so Kirito felt it was where he belonged. But those 2 years trapped in Sword Art Online taught Kirito something. There's not much of a difference between the real and virtual world. Kirito clearly learned the wrong lessons though, because there are tons of differences between the real and virtual world. When Kirito returned to reality, he was happy to see Suguha again, and swore to close the gap that had grown between them over the last couple of years. But Kirito isn't sure how he's supposed to do that, and wonders what he can do for Suguha. Back in the present, Kirito tells Suguha to meet him in Alfheim Online so they can sort things out. Kirito shouldn't expect Suguha to play Alfheim Online right now. She's really sad and depressed quest, so Sugo probably needs some time to recover. Sugo wishes that she could be as strong as Kirito. She told Kirito to not give up on the one he loves, so she needs to do the same. Sugo puts on her atmosphere and logs back into Alfheim Online. Rekon comes and meets her. He says that he poisoned all the salamanders and escaped. It's kind of hard to believe that some wimpy loser like Rekon was able to defeat a bunch of salamanders on his own. Rekon then tracked Leafa here. Rekon wonders where Kirito went. Leafa admits that she said something mean to him and probably won't see him again. Leafa tells Rekon to head back to Swolvain together, but Rekon doesn't want to see Leafa crying. Rekon says that he loves Leafa and tries to kiss her, but she rejects him. Leafa shouldn't be so surprised about Rekon's confession. It was painfully obvious from the start that Rekon loved Leafa. Rekon doesn't understand what he did wrong. Leafa feels a bit better and starts laughing. I feel like it would take a lot longer for Leafa to recover from her heartbreak. Afterwards, Leafa meets Kirito and challenges him to a duel. Kirito promises that he won't hold back this time. Kirito uses the same attack style as he did during the kendo match, and Leafa understands why he looks so composed. Kirito and Leafa fight for a bit, but they both toss their weapons away and embrace. Kirito and Leafa apologize to each other. Kirito was going to throw the duel, but he said that he wasn't going to hold back, so he's a liar. This duel was pointless. There was no way Leafa was going to win fair and square. We already saw how Kirito easily defeated Eugene, who's literally the strongest player in Alfheim Online. Leafa wouldn't stand a chance against Kirito in a normal fight. Kirito acknowledges that he never really came back to the real world after Sword Art Online, and he can't come back until Asuna wakes up. In a way, the game hasn't ended for Kirito yet. That's why Kirito hasn't figured out how he fits in at home with Sugo. Leafa tells Kirito that she'll be waiting for him to come back, and will be there for him no matter how long it takes. Until then, Leafa agrees to help Kirito in here. Kirito and Leafa's swords form an X shape, which is clearly a ripoff of the moment in the crossing field opening, when Kirito and Asuna's crossed swords made an X shape. Kirito and Leafa go back to Rekon and explain their plan to him. The three of them will raid the World Tree and try to defeat the NPC Guardians. This isn't going to be enough. Kirito, Leafa, and Rekon will need a lot more help if they want to beat all the NPC Guardians. They need many more players to join the team. Kirito could livestream this event and broadcast himself as the person who cleared the Sword Art Online death game. People might watch the livestream and come to assist Kirito. Yui appears and tells Kirito some information. The NPC Guardians don't have high stats, but the problem is that there's way too many of them. This quest was designed to be next to impossible to finish. The NPC Guardians all add up to one unbeatable boss. Kirito fights the NPC Guardians while Leafa and Rekon heal him. However, the NPC Guardians are using a different targeting algorithm than any of the other bosses in the game. They attack Leafa and Rekon as well. Leafa tells Rekon that this raid is very important, and it's not just the game. It's funny how Rekon still needs to use his controller to fly, since he can't do it on his own. Rekon sacrifices himself and uses a dark magic self-destruct spell to kill several of the NPC Guardians. Even though the penalty is much worse than normal death, Rekon creates an opening but Kirito isn't quick enough. How has one race not been able to beat the Grand Quest? Rekon created a huge opening on his own, so if you got like 100 Sylph players, and they all used a self-destruct spell at once, then it should create a big enough opening for a player to get through. Kirito is about to get killed again and can't keep this up, but the Sylphs and the Catseas arrive in the nick of time to help. The Sylphs and the Catseas use the money Kirito gave them earlier to buy better gear. The Sylphs and the Catseas destroy many of the NPC Guardians. Leafa fights with Kirito too. Leafa gives Kirito her sword. He uses an ultra powerful dual wielding attack to break through and make it to the top. They went full Gurren Lagann here. There's no dual wielding sword skills in Alfheim Online though, so how did Kirito do this? And if Kirito could do this, then why hasn't anyone else done it? How is it that Kirito is doing all these impossible feats that no other player has ever done before? It's not like Kirito is using the best gear or anything. And why didn't any of the Archer NPC Guardians appear? The Sylphs and the Catseas retreat now that they helped Kirito accomplish his goal. The door is still closed. Kirito isn't sure what to do now. Yui tells Kirito that the door isn't locked by a quest flag, but by a system administrator. In other words, it's restricted access, and the door was never meant to be opened by a player. More NPC Guardians appear, but Kirito takes the keycard out of his pocket. Yui transfers the code and uses the keycard to open the door. It's so convenient that Asuna took the keycard earlier and dropped it to Kirito. There was no other way he could have opened the door. Maybe Kirito could try hacking the game from inside the game again, because apparently that's how hacking works in the Sword Art Online universe. In addition to that, Yui stated in the previous episode that the keycard can only be used at the right system console, and yet she was able to use it here. Yui mentioned that she doesn't have her admin privileges in Alfheim Online anymore. Yui is a normal navigation pixie, so how did she transfer the code and open the door? This anime is so inconsistent. It's as if the author Reki Kawahara is just making stuff up as he goes along. Episode 10, Gilded Hero. Kirito and Yui get teleported to a brightly lit hallway. Yui transforms back into her normal appearance and detects that Asuna is very close. Kirito and Yui Yui run through the hallway and Yui deletes part of the wall. Again, Yui doesn't have her admin privileges in Alfheim Online, so how is she doing this? I doubt navigation pixies are supposed to be able to delete part of the wall. Kirito and Yui find themselves at the top of the world tree. They discover that there is no floating city, so the whole thing was a lie and there was never any grand quest. Wrecked Progress should prepare to get sued to oblivion for false advertising. They might have to shut down as well and file for bankruptcy like Argus. Kirito and Yui run to the birdcage. Yui somehow deletes the gate, which shouldn't be possible because she doesn't have any admin powers. But whatever. My suspension of disbelief has already been shattered at this point. Kirito and Yui finally reunite with Asuna. Kirito apologizes for taking so long, but Asuna forgives him and always knew that he'd save her. How is Asuna so sure of that? If there weren't so many coincidences and contrivances throughout the series, then Kirito's mission wouldn't have been successful. For example, if Kirito's data didn't transfer over from Sword Art Online, then it would take him a long time to train his skills, and he wouldn't get the chance to rescue Asuna. And if the game didn't glitch at the start, then Kirito would have never met Leafa, and he would be on his own. Yui isn't able to log Asuna out, since her status is blocked by complicated codes that she doesn't have access to. They need to find a system console to bypass it, but Yui has already been shown to use admin powers without a system console, so I'm sure she can log Asuna out right now. Kirito, Asuna, and Yui should leave right away and go to a system console. The characters are suddenly hit by strong gravity magic and Yui disappears. The landscape changes into a black void. Oberon appears and wonders how Kirito managed to get all the way up here. Kirito immediately recognizes that Oberon is Sugo, even though he shouldn't know this. Sugo never told Kirito that he was the Fairy King Oberon, and if Kirito was so quick to tell who Oberon was, then why did it take him so long to realize who Leafa was? Oberon saw a strange program running, but Kirito says that he flew up here with his wings. Oberon tells Kirito and Asuna that his thought control experiments are 80% complete. Kirito should try to log out now and contact the police, since he knows what Sugo is actually doing. Unlike Asuna, there are no complicated codes blocking his logout status. Kirito could also use his illusion magic again and transform into the Gleam Eyes monster, just like what happened in the fight against the salamanders. Kirito can still speak, so he should be able to chant a spell. Oberon chains Asuna up and smells her hair. Oberon got an analyzer in Asuna's hospital room and replicated her scent in the game. That's pretty creepy. Furthermore, if Oberon could replicate Asuna's scent in the game, then he should be selling that technology. It's ridiculously difficult to simulate smells in virtual reality. If Oberon was able to do it, then he could make a fortune. Oberon seems to be the type of guy who would buy Belle Delphine's Gamer Girl bathwater as well. Kirito tries to get up, but Oberon stabs him with his own sword and changes the pain absorber from level 10 to level 8. Oberon threatens to increase the pain gradually to give Kirito something to look forward to. Oberon says that once the pain absorber drops below level 3, then it'll start affecting Kirito's body in the real world. Why is this even a feature in the first place? The atmosphere is supposed to be safer than the nerve gear, so players shouldn't be able to feel any pain inside the game, since they could still die as a result of shock in real life, especially if they have weak hearts. Oberon licks Asuna's tears and assaults her in front of Kirito. He says he'll do the same thing to Asuna's body in the real world. Why is this even a feature in the game? How did Alfheim Online get approved for the mass markets when you can chain other players up and assault them? Kirito isn't able to do anything and gives up. Kirito thinks that this is some kind of punishment for him being too arrogant. Kirito suddenly hears the voice of Akihiko and admits that he's facing reality. However, Akihiko tells Kirito that he showed him that the power of the human will was superior to the system and the possibilities of the future. Akihiko encourages Kirito to get up and fight back. Kirito somehow breaks free from the gravity magic and uses Akihiko's Heathcliff system login ID to gain admin privileges that exceed Oberon's. Kirito should need a password too. A login ID shouldn't be enough to access someone else's account. If it was that easy to log into other people's accounts, then people will get hacked all the time. And how is Kirito logging into the game when he's already playing the game with a different account? He should have to log out first. This is also the biggest Deus Ex Machina ever. Kirito wouldn't be able to do anything if Akihiko's ghost didn't randomly show up out of nowhere. Kirito sets Oberon's ID to level 1. Kirito accuses Oberon of stealing everything and being the king of thieves, sitting alone on his stolen throne. Oberon tries to generate the Excalibur object, but it doesn't work. Kirito generates the Excalibur object and gives it to Oberon. He challenges Oberon to a fight and also changes the pain absorber to 0. Kirito declares that it's a battle between the king of thieves and the gilded hero. That title doesn't even make any sense. Gilded means covered in gold or wealthy and privileged. Kirito is neither of those things. He's not covered in gold and he's not wealthy or privileged. At least Reki Kawahara didn't rip off Berserk again and steal one of Guts' other nicknames. Kirito tells Oberon that Akihiko never flinched. Oberon finally understands that it was Akihiko's ID that Kirito used earlier. Oberon is mad, but Kirito sort of sees where Oberon is coming from, since he lost to Akihiko too and had to go work for him. However, unlike Oberon Oberon, Kirito never wanted to be Akihiko. Why is Kirito BFFs with Akihiko now? Did he forget that Akihiko is a mass murderer? Oberon tries to attack Kirito, but it's no use. Kirito cuts off Oberon's hand and mercilessly slaughters him. All this build-up for nothing. The final boss fight was way too easy for Kirito. It would have actually been interesting if Oberon was finished with his mind control experiments, and he used it on Asuna, then have a brainwashed Asuna fight against Kirito, like the Optimus Prime vs Bumblebee fight scene in Transformers The Last Night. Kirito could say something emotional to snap Asuna out of it, and then they could both team up to kill Oberon. That would have been a much better finale than what we actually got. Afterwards, Kirito frees Asuna from the chains. Kirito could have cut Asuna down a bit sooner, instead of leaving her hanging. Kirito starts crying, but Asuna tells Kirito that she always had faith in him, and he's her hero. Kirito claims that he doesn't have any power and he's not a hero, but he'll do his best to be one. Kirito uses his system privileges to log Asuna out. He promises to see her at the hospital as soon as he can. Asuna will wait for Kirito, and wants him to be the first person she sees when she wakes up. Akihiko's ghost shows up again and talks to Kirito. Akihiko says that he's just an after image or echo. As usual, Kirito has no idea what Akihiko is talking about. Akihiko gives Kirito an item called the seed. It's the beginning of a new world. Once it sprouts, Akihiko tells Kirito that he'll know what it is. Akihiko mentions that Kirito can do whatever he wants with the seed. Kirito can even delete it. But if he still has a tiny bit of fondness left for the virtual world, then he should take care of it. Akihiko disappears and tells Kirito that he hopes to meet again. Akihiko still doesn't reveal the reason why he trapped 10,000 people in an MMORPG and made it so that they die in real life if they died in the game. Kirito shouldn't be listening to Akihiko. He lost 2 years of his life and was trapped in a death game because of him. The seed program could be something that traps players in the game again and makes it unable for them to log out, so Kirito should immediately delete it. Kirito teleports back to the world tree and Yui appears. She was hiding in the local memory of Kirito's nerve gear rig. Kirito tells Yui that Asuna is safe and back home now. Yui is happy to hear that. Kirito promises to come back and visit soon, but he's not sure how long this world is going to last for. Yui informs Kirito that it doesn't matter, because her core program is inside his nerve gear, so they'll always be together. Kirito logs out of Alfheim Online to see Asuna. Sugoha is nearby and Kirito thanks her for the help, since he couldn't have done this on his own. Sugoha is very happy that she got the chance to help out Kirito. Sugoha tells Kirito to get going, and Kirito rides his bike to the hospital. Episode 11, The World Seed. Kirito arrives at the hospital, but Sugo is there and attacks him with a knife. Sugo plans to kill Kirito in real life for what he did to him in the game. Kirito should have expected Sugo to be there, since he knew that Kirito was going to the hospital. In order to avoid Sugo, Kirito should go through a side entrance instead of the main entrance. Hospitals should have multiple entrances. There are several ways to defend yourself against a knife attack. Going for the attacker's throat is one of the best methods to disable them. You'll disrupt the person's breathing, and they'll most likely stop attacking you after a hard strike to the throat. If the attacker is a male, then a kick to the groin is also a great way to immediately incapacitate them. Attacking a person's other sensitive spots such as their eyes is another good technique, since it'll cause them a lot of pain. Furthermore, try to grab the attacker's wrist. This will give you control of the knife's direction, and you might have an opportunity to punch the attacker. Sugo's right eye has been damaged in real life due to the pain absorber being set to 0 in Alfheim Online. Again, why is the pain absorber a feature in Alfheim Online? The atmosphere should be much safer to use than the nerve gear. Kirito tells Sugo to turn himself in since he's finished, but Sugo says that there are lots of companies that want his research. Sugo attempts to kill Kirito, but he misses due to his poor eyesight. Sugo's left eye still works, so it shouldn't be that difficult to stab Kirito at point blank range. Kirito tells Sugo that he doesn't have any real power and manages to disarm him. Kirito takes the knife from Sugo. Kirito's fighting experience in the game shouldn't transfer to real life. If that was the case, then he should have beaten Sugoha during their kendo match. How is Kirito suddenly an expert fighter? He doesn't even use a knife in Sword Art Online or Alfheim Online. Kirito's about to kill Sugo but ultimately spares his life. This was a bad choice. Kirito should just kill Sugo now so he doesn't cause any more issues in the future. Even if Sugo gets arrested, he could escape from jail and continue to go after Kirito. It's clearly self-defense, so it's not like Kirito will get in any trouble for killing Sugo. Kirito shouldn't drop the knife. Sugo could pick it up and kill Kirito with it. There's absolutely no reason to leave Sugo alive. Kirito shouldn't show Sugo any mercy, especially after what he did to Asuna. Kirito has killed a few people in the past, so this wouldn't be his first murder. You can also see steam rising from Sugo's pants, which means that he peed himself. Kirito goes into the hospital and it's completely deserted. This shouldn't be possible. Where did all the staff go? Why is the place abandoned? We saw several cars in the parking lot. Where did those people run off to? Kirito goes to Asuna's room and is finally able to meet her in person. They hug and share a kiss, but Asuna has been in a coma for over 2 years, and probably hasn't brushed her teeth in that time frame either. I guess Kirito really does love Asuna. Kirito says that that he just defeated the final boss and it's all over now. Asuna can't hear too well, but she understands what Kirito means. Kirito and Asuna formally introduce themselves to one another, and Kirito welcomes Asuna back to the real world. Kirito looks out the window and he sees their avatars from Sword Art Online. A few months later, Kirito and Asuna both attend the school with other former Sword Art Online players. It would be pretty awkward to sit next to a player killer. Kirito and Asuna sit on a bench during lunchtime. Kirito says that he feels like he's gotten about 5 years older in the last month. Asuna has been doing rehab and is able to walk around without her crutches. Kirito and Asuna are embarrassed to hold hands. Asuna made sandwiches for herself and Kirito. Apparently, Asuna's cooking skill in Sword Art Online transferred over to real life. Asuna mentions that her dad quit as CEO and took an early retirement. We also learned that Sugo was arrested that night in the parking lot. He denied everything and tried to pin the blame on Akihiko during interrogation, but later confessed to everything after another one of the employees was questioned. Sugo shouldn't have said anything, especially when he doesn't have an attorney present. Interrogators are very skilled at extracting information from people, and they'll try to manipulate or trick you into saying something. It's best to keep quiet so you don't fall for their shady tactics. But Sugo's an idiot, so it makes sense why he confessed to everything right away. The 300 trapped Sword Art Online players were freed as well, and they couldn't remember anything about the experiments when they came to. Wait a minute, those are the 2 players from episode 1. The good thing is that the players didn't suffer any neurological or psychiatric side effects, so they could return to their normal lives. In other words, there were no lasting impacts, and this whole arc was basically pointless. The fate of virtual reality MMORPGs was a different story. This latest incident nearly destroyed the virtual reality MMORPG industry altogether. How was the virtual reality MMORPG industry not already destroyed due to the Sword Art Online incident? It shouldn't take 2 major disasters or scandals for people to finally realize that there's something wrong with these virtual reality MMORPGs. Wrecked Progress disbanded and Alfheim Online was shut down. The 5 or 6 other virtual reality MMORPGs weren't doing too well either, due to all the negative press. It sure is lucky and convenient that Suguha was playing the exact game Asuna was trapped in, when she had several other options available. Kirito probably wouldn't have been able to rescue Asuna without Suguha's help. Asuna wonders what happened to Akihiko, and Kirito says that he's dead. Akihiko Sword Art Online ended. He did a high output scan on his brain and fried it, but Akihiko was able to copy his consciousness to the net. There was a 1 in 1,000 chance it worked, but Kirito knows that Akihiko pulled it off, which is how he appeared and spoke to Kirito in Alfheim Online. So it's kind of like what happened to James Halliday at the end of the Ready Player One movie. James Halliday also died in real life, but a version of himself exists in the Oasis. Moreover, the seed looks very similar to the golden Easter egg. The authors of Sword Art Online and Ready Player One have met each other in real life. Additionally, there's a direct shout out to Sword Art Online in the Ready Player 2 novel. Silica and Lisbeth are jealous that Kirito was in a relationship with Asuna. Later, Kirito, Asuna, and Suguha go to Egil's cafe for a party. The other characters are already there, and they congratulate Kirito for beating Sword Art Online. This party is several months late though. Kirito tries to order bourbon on the rocks, but gets oolong tea instead since he's still a minor and can't drink. We learn that Thinker and Yulier have gotten married. Kirito asks Egil if the seed has been doing okay. Egil replies that it's been doing amazing. 50 mirrors have already been set up, and it's been downloaded 100,000 times. 300 servers are running it. The seed is a program package that's basically a stripped down version of the Cardinal system that can be run on small servers. Anyone with access to an ordinary server can easily download the seed and use it to create their very own online world. After determining that it was safe to use, Kirito had Egil upload the seed to servers across the globe, so everyone could access it for free. Kirito trusts Akihiko way too much. This could be a trap, and the new MMORPGs created from the seed will all be death games as well. This revived the virtual reality MMORPG genre and kept it going. Furthermore, the data for Alfheim Online was transferred to a new company that decided to keep it online and running. Not many people would want to play Alfheim Online anymore due to what happened, so they should just let the game die. You can create your own online world using the seed. So why do these characters continue to play a game that has already caused them so much pain and suffering? They have many other choices. Countless more virtual reality MMORPGs were created, and the best part is that they were all connected to each other. It's almost to the point where you could create a character in one game and transfer it to another with all its skills intact, but most games have different skills, so how would the transfer even work? It would get messed up like what happened when Kirito's data from Sword Art Online transferred over to Alfheim Online. The characters all log into Alfheim Online at night for an after party, and Kirito dances with Leafa in the pale moonlight. Why is Kirito dancing with another girl when he's already in a relationship with Asuna? And to make things worse, this girl is is literally his sister slash cousin. It seems like Kirito wants to keep his options open. Is this scene the reason why the arc is called Fairy Dance? Because there were no dancing fairies in any of the previous scenes. Leafa wonders why Kirito is not using his old Sword Art Online avatar to play Alfheim Online. Kirito says that his mission is over in that world. This means that Leafa was the first to meet the Spriggan version of Kirito and show him the way to the World Tree. Leafa plans to go home now because everything is too far away, but Kirito says that she can go anywhere she wants. I guess that's true, as long as that anywhere doesn't include being in a relationship with her big brother. Kirito shows Leafa that Aincrad has also been added into Alfheim Online. Kirito vows to go floor by floor and beat all 100 floors this time, so it seems like progressive isn't canon then. Kirito reset his stats, so he's starting from scratch again. Leafa says that she can help Kirito and will go anywhere with him. It doesn't really feel right to add Aincrad into Alfheim Online. Nearly 4,000 people lost their lives because of the Sword Art Online incident, so this is going to be a huge PR nightmare for the company that runs Alfheim Online. It also doesn't make sense how a complete copy of Aincrad exists when the game was deleted after Sword Art Online was beaten. Why would anyone want to willingly replay Aincrad after what happened to them? All the characters go to Aincrad. The former Sword Art Online players look exactly like they do in real life, even though avatar appearances are supposed to be randomized in Alfheim Online. Asuna has chosen an Undine character. Kirito says something and flies towards Aincrad with the other characters. We don't really know what Kirito said here, but many people believe that he was thanking Akihiko or something. Apparently, Kirito's a masochist because he enjoyed being stuck in Sword Art Online for over 2 years. Extra edition. Kirito and Sugo go to the school. When did Kirito learn how to ride a motorcycle? Asuna, Silica, and Lisbeth are already at the school. They teach Sugo how to swim, while Kirito talks with the Ministry of Internal Affairs guy Seijiro Kikuoka. Seijiro is trying to wrap up the Sword Art Online and Alfheim Online incidents. The player action logs don't spell everything out, so Kirito has to explain exactly what happened. Everything should be in the logs though, so it doesn't make sense why Seijiro needs Kirito to tell him what happened. It seems like this was an excuse to justify the existence of this extra edition. Seijiro gives Kirito a bunch of snacks, and Kirito tells him his story. There's a quick recap of the Aincrad and Fairy Dance arcs. Suguha learns how to swim as Kirito finishes the meeting. The recorder has been recording for about 8 hours, 23 minutes, and 45 seconds. There were 25 episodes in total for the Aincrad and Fairy Dance arcs. When you take out the openings and endings, each episode is about 20 minutes long. In other words, this is the runtime of Sword Art Online's first season. That's a cool little Easter egg, but doesn't make sense because there's no way Kirito was so detailed. When you're recapping something, it should be much shorter than the actual event. It's also hard to believe that Kirito was sitting there and talking for 8.5 hours straight. The characters later log into Alfheim Online. Silica's pet dragon Pina also exists in Alfheim Online. Why is she the only one with a pet? It seems like pets are really useful in battle, so many more players should have one. Kirito remembers that there's a quest in the south of Sylph territory with a whale in it. Yui wants to go so she can ride the whale. Aegil isn't able to find out much information about the quest, since most people don't know about it. He can only confirm the part about a big sea monster showing up at the end. Kirito is the party leader and the group go to start the quest. Asuna casts a water breathing spell for everyone, and they head underwater. The characters meet an NPC named Narek. He gives the characters the quest, and they're tasked with finding a giant pearl inside an undersea temple. It seems like this is a simple fetch and collect quest. The party enters the undersea temple. Kirito and Klein don't look where they're going, and walk right into a trap. They should pay more attention. How do they miss a pit this big? Are we really supposed to believe that Kirito was the best player in Sword Art Online? Leafa nearly falls into the pit, but Kirito saves her. Leafa remembers how it was just like the moment she fell into a pond when she was little. After defeating some strong monsters, the pearl is discovered. Kirito takes the pearl and is about to give it back to Narek, but Asuna stops him at the last second. It turns out that the pearl is actually an egg that contains a strange creature inside of it. The quest is called Plunderers of the Deep Sea. Kirito and the others are the plunderers. It shouldn't have taken the group so long to realize that. Narek transforms into a kraken, the sea demon from Norse mythology, and he's the final boss of the quest. This should have been obvious since Narek is an anagram of kraken. It's not rocket science. The characters fight the kraken, but its stats are too high. Kirito is using fire attacks underwater for some reason. He should be using lightning attacks instead. This wouldn't be the first time Kirito faced a supposedly unbeatable boss. He should be dual wielding like what happened during the fight against the NPC Guardians. An NPC called Leviathan the Sea Lord comes and forces the kraken to retreat. Kraken vows to rise up and claim his power. Leviathan takes the egg and the quest is complete. Leviathan transports the characters back to their world on a giant whale. Yui is able to ride the whale, even though she's actually riding Pina, so this is pointless. Finally, the anime ends with Kirito getting a call from Seijiro, setting up the first arc of Sword Art Online Season 2, where Kirito goes and plays Gun Gale online.
Mother's Basement made a video on how to fix the Fairy Dance arc. Let's check out his thoughts.
I honestly think that Mother's Basement Sword Art Online videos videos are actually pretty good. There's a reason why millions of people consistently watch them. Mother's Basement's videos are high quality, nicely edited. He knows what he's talking about. They have a lot of hilarious, laugh out loud moments, and overall they're quite entertaining. I highly suggest other Sword Art Online fans to also set their bias aside and give Mother's Basement a fair chance. His videos are genuinely pretty great, and you don't know what you're missing out on. I really liked Mother's Basement's video on fixing the fairy dance arc of Sword Art Online. Like many other people, I also believe that the fairy dance arc was the worst part of Sword Art Online, and I think that Mother's Basement's changes make the arc a whole lot better. It's still not great or anything, but it's far superior than what we actually got. I thought it'd be interesting to analyze Mother's Basement's video and explain why I personally enjoyed it so much. Let's get started.
Criticizing art requires a totally different skill set from making it.
I definitely have to agree with Mother's Basement here 100%. Sword Art Online fans aren't very good at taking criticism or accepting other people's viewpoints, so they usually have to come up with a lot of petty excuses as to why someone else doesn't like the show, instead of the simple answer that people have different tastes, and all anime is subjective. Sword Art Online fans believe that their show is a beloved, flawless masterpiece, and it's impossible for anyone to dislike it, and of course you don't need to do something to actually criticize it. For example, most movie critics haven't made a single movie in their life. That doesn't mean their opinion is invalid or not meaningful.
Instead, I'm going to be working with the same basic premise and major story beats as the original, except towards the end.
I like how Mother's Basement is working with the same exact story elements and characters as the original. It goes to show that several small changes can make a big difference in the end. You don't need to drastically alter the story and characters to improve something.
I would extend the timeline of events a bit, since 2 months is an absurdly short rehabilitation period for someone who's spent 2 years wasting away in bed.
This is also something that I would have liked to see more of. It would have been interesting to see how the Sword Art Online players adjusted back to their normal lives. They were stuck in the game for over 2 years, so returning back to reality wouldn't have been easy. There's probably a lot of players who thought their life in Sword Art Online was much better than the real world, and now they have to cope with reality again. Not to mention what kind of PTSD some of the players must be going through. It's a shame we didn't get to see anything like that in the actual Sword Art Online series.
He hasn't even made any attempts to extract her data from his nerve gear in the months that he's been awake.
Mother's Basement brings up a really good point here. If Kirito loved Yui so much, then why didn't he try to do anything during the 2-month period after he escaped from Sword Art Online? Also, it's weird how all of Kirito's items from Sword Art Online were corrupted and didn't work properly, yet Yui's item works perfectly. How convenient that happens.
It's also a clear signifier that Yui has no actual purpose in this plot, aside from being cute and spouting exposition.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that Yui's only purpose in the fairy dance arc was to spout exposition. You know, I honestly never really had a problem with Yui before. Sure, it was weird how Yui kept calling Kirito daddy, and she wasn't my favorite character or anything, but after watching Mother's Basement Sword Art Online videos, I'm starting to see why so many people dislike her, and for good reasons as well. And that's yet another point why I enjoy Mother's Basement's video so much. He's able to get you to see different points of views, and he explains everything in a thorough, effective, and convincing way.
Sensing this distress, Alfheim's version of the Cardinal system sends an emotional support AI to help him. A pixie-skinned clone of Yui.
This is another great fix. Why is Yui the only support AI we saw in Alfheim Online? It's just like how Silica was the only character who had a pet in Aincrad. You can't just introduce these story elements and then only give them to one character when they're not supposed to be rare or unique. It makes much more sense for the game to send an emotional support AI to help Kirito than for him to randomly find an AI among his old Sword Art Online items.
Although I'm sure some of you will argue that there's no greater purpose than Moe, and, well, you're not wrong.
And this is why I think Mother's Basement Sword Art Online videos stand out among the crowd. He adds in a bunch of funny jokes along with his criticisms. Other YouTubers like Digibro do this as well with their Sword Art Online videos. I can see why so many people enjoyed watching the Sword Art Online hate videos on YouTube.
The idea of any kind of romantic relationship between the Black Swordsman George Michael and Sylph Warrior Maybe is, well, it's a bit off-putting, to put it mildly.
Yeah, the whole subplot in the fairy dance arc was always weird to me. This was something that I didn't really like about the show. I guess people in Japan are more used to it, since it's a common topic in a lot of other anime, but Western audiences probably had a much different reaction.
And her character arc in this season is mostly about moving past them. This is literally the only meaningful character growth.
Now that Mother's Basement mentions it, he's completely right. Suguha's character arc about moving past her love for Kirito is literally the most character development any character gets in the fairy dance arc. The side characters like Eugene, Sakuya, and Elisharu got zero character development. The main antagonist of the fairy dance arc, Nobuyuki Sugo, didn't grow at all. And the same can be said for both Kirito and Asuna. So Mother's Basement is correct about Suguha getting the most development.
And conceptually, the idea that Kirito changed so much in SAO that his sister sister saw him as a different person is an interesting way to mark his growth as a character.
It's interesting how Mother's Basement decides to keep the subplot in the story. One of the major complaints about Sword Art Online is the unnecessary between Kirito and Suguha, but yeah, I can see why Mother's Basement kept it in the story, because it's the only meaningful character development in the entire Fairy Dance arc. If you took that part out, then literally none of the characters would experience any sort of growth or change.
Kirito, our audience surrogate character, is supposed to have zero physical attraction to his sister, yet we, the audience, are essentially forced to see her as desirable.
Yep, another fair complaint about the Fairy Dance arc, and the Sword Art Online anime series in general. Sword Art Online use of fanservice is just terrible. The problem isn't that there's too much fanservice, but how it's portrayed. A lot of the fanservice is shown during important or serious moments, and it completely ruins the scene. The Fairy Dance arc isn't even the most egregious example of this. All of the close-up shots of Sinan's during the Phantom Bullet arc are far worse.
My version of this story would end with Suguha and Kirito properly reconciling as a family, and Sugu definitively moving on.
This is an excellent decision. It's strange how Suguha kind of got over her feelings for Kirito, and yet you can tell that she still loves Kirito. Sword Art Online wants to have its cake and eat it too. Just pick one or the other. Either Suguha still loves Kirito or she doesn't, and Mother's Basement's change makes a whole lot more sense. It gives the audience a sense of closure, and gets rid of the whole pseudo-harem aspect of Sword Art Online as well, so you're killing two birds with one stone. As I said before, small fixes can make a big difference.
And then goes to dance with Rekon. Or she could just be happy being single and independent.
Mother's Basement suggestion here works perfectly for the story. If Suguha ended up with Rekon, it would be a great way to show the audience that she's moved on from Kirito. If Suguha decides to be single, that will be good as well. She doesn't have to be in a relationship with anyone. Anything to put this subplot to an end, and prove that Suguha has actually gotten over her feelings for Kirito, is a much needed change from the original Sword Art Online series. And yeah, that's it for part 1. In part 2, Mother's Basement then goes on to pretty much fix most of the major flaws in the Fairy Dance arc, so I'll save that for a future video. What did you think of the Fairy Dance arc of Sword Art Online? Let me know your opinion in the comments below. As a bonus for sticking around until now, here's an analysis and breakdown of the opening Innocence. The first shot here is the sun in the clear blue sky. The sun symbolizes many things. It can symbolize power, growth, renewal, clarity, warmth, joy, and hope. Kirito and the other players trapped in Sword Art Online have just escaped the death game. They are finally able to go back to their old lives and enjoy living in the real world. A bunch of birds fly in front of the sun. The birds are blocking out the sun, which means that they're blocking the source of the warmth, joy, and hope. This foreshadows that bad things are about to come. If you look closely, these birds are actually doves. Doves are the symbol of peace, love, and innocence. Quite fitting considering this opening is called Innocence. Doves are also regarded as messengers. In both the Old and New Testaments, the dove is depicted as the messenger of God or as is familiar. Due to this, doves are also considered as pure. In the next shot, we see a close-up of Asuna. Asuna is also pure and innocent, something that the doves represent. However, in this shot, we don't see the doves, only their shadows. Shadows can represent many different things depending on the context. In this case, the shadows indicate that something is about to happen to Asuna. This is where the term foreshadow comes from. Asuna's eyes are also closed. This symbolizes that she is shut off from the rest of the world and how she's helpless. We then see Suguha. Suguha is looking up towards the sky. This shows that Suguha is hopeful. In the earlier shot, we saw how it's a clear blue sky. A clear blue sky represents happiness. The Fairy Dance arc is about Suguha trying to find happiness. Kirito pushed Suguha away after he learned that Suguha wasn't his real sister. After learning that Kirito was trapped in Sword Art Online, Suguha cried for the first time in years. After Kirito escaped the death game, Suguha was saddened because she found out that Kirito loved Asuna. Suguha was also sad because she found out that Kirito in Alfheim Online was actually her cousin. Due to this, Suguha locked herself in her room and went into a slight depression. Despite everything that happened to Suguha, she still remains hopeful. Just like with Asuna, we see the shadows of the doves. This foreshadows that something will happen to Suguha. Unlike Asuna though, Suguha's eyes are open. This means that she is not closed off from the world. The Fairy Dance arc doesn't really feature much Asuna and mainly focuses on Suguha. That's why Suguha's eyes are open while Asuna's eyes are closed. In the next scene, we see Kirito's feet. Unlike Asuna and Suguha, the shadow of the doves are not touching Kirito. This shows that Kirito feels out of place. We then see Kirito turn back and look towards the camera. This shows that Kirito had left Suguha and Asuna behind, but now Kirito realizes that something is wrong. He turns back to let the viewer know that there is something he must do. It's also cloudy here. A cloudy sky foretells that there will be emotional times ahead. It also shows that you have a heavy burden and that you must remain patient because all the problems will be solved in the end. This is the exact situation that Kirito is in. Kirito has to save Asuna, but he doesn't know what to do. Kirito has a heavy burden to bear. However, he remained patient and in the end everything turned out okay. Something I like here is that Tokorozawa Station is actually a real place. place. It's a railway station in Tokorozawa, Saitama, Japan. It's operated by the private railway company Seibu Railway. They changed Seibu to Seisu, most likely due to copyright reasons, but everything else is an exact replica. How many of you guys knew that this was a real place? Let me know in the comments below. The world around Kirito has changed to the virtual world. As the world around Kirito is changing, Kirito doesn't look at his surroundings. He's still fixated towards the viewer. This shows that Kirito is not aware of how the virtual world has changed his life. The camera then quickly moves towards the top of the world tree. This shot here foreshadows the final destination that Kirito must go in order to save Asuna. The show's logo appears and then the background turns to white and we see the doves again, but this time the doves are flying in the opposite direction. It's also important to note the contrast, black and white, yin and yang. In Chinese philosophy, yin and yang describes how opposite or contrary forces may actually be complementary, interconnected, and interdependent. In the earlier shots, we saw how the doves flew above Kirito and Suguha. Before that, the doves flew above Asuna. Suguha and Kirito are two completely opposite types of people. Now they must work together in order to save Asuna. Although Suguha and Kirito are different, they are still interconnected with each other since they're cousins. The fairy dance arc is all about Suguha and Kirito overcoming their differences and learning how to depend on one another. The next shot transitions to Asuna's hospital room. We see the equipment keeping Asuna alive. Then the shot lingers on Asuna's hand. It's important to note that it's Asuna's left hand. In Asian cultures, the left hand is symbolic of yin energy. Yin is also the female and passive principle in nature. Furthermore, the left hand also symbolizes the unconscious side of our minds. The camera lingers on Asuna's left hand to show that Asuna is a female and that she's passive and unconscious. We then see that Kirito is sitting next to Asuna's unconscious body. Sitting shows that you don't want to make decisions in your life and you'll allow others to lead you. However, Kirito doesn't stay sitting. He stands up. Standing up indicates that you're willing to take a stand for something you believe in. Kirito loves Asuna and he knows that it's up to him to save her. Kirito is literally and figuratively standing up for Asuna. In the background, we can also see a vase filled with flowers. It's important to note the colors of the flowers, orange and pink. Orange flowers offer happiness and joy. They also send the message of adventure. Pink flowers represent innocence and playfulness. Pink flowers are also generally associated with love. The flowers and the colors of the flowers fit perfectly in this opening. The orange flowers show that Kirito wants to find happiness and joy for Asuna. It also shows that he has to go on an adventure in order to save her. The pink flowers represent Asuna's innocence and the love between Kirito and Asuna. In the next shot, we see that Kirito looks towards the light. Light can symbolize many different things depending on the context. In this case, light represents hope. It shows that Kirito is hopeful and wants to find a way to save Asuna. Now we're back to the shot with Kirito standing on the crosswalk. This means that visiting Asuna in the hospital was one of Kirito's recent memories. Kirito probably turned back to look at the direction the hospital is in. We can also infer that Kirito had just left the hospital. On his way home, Kirito remembered his visit to Asuna. The people walking around Kirito are also different than the ones in the previous scene. This means that Kirito has been standing there for a bit. This shows that Kirito is hesitant and he doesn't want to leave Asuna behind. Kirito is unaware of what to do, so he just stands there for a while. Kirito is also standing in the middle of a crosswalk. A crosswalk connects two places similar to a bridge. Bridges can represent progress and connection. Since Kirito is walking from one end of a crosswalk to another, it shows that he wants to make progress towards saving Asuna. Kirito is also looking towards Asuna's hospital. This shows that he is connected with Asuna. Kirito takes one last look back and then walks forward. This is very similar to a scene in Crossing Field. It shows that Kirito is ready to move on and he's not afraid of the challenges he has to overcome in order to save Asuna. In the next scene, we see a porcelain dish, a porcelain water pitcher, a porcelain sake bottle, and a porcelain vase for sakaki leaves. The porcelain objects appear to be placed in front of a kamidana. Kamidana are miniature household altars provided to enshrine a Shinto kami. All of these items suggest that Suguha is a very respectful person. There's probably a deeper meaning behind the arrangement of the objects, but I'm not really familiar with the Shinto religion. If anyone does know the meaning behind the placements of the objects, let me know in the comments below. In the next shot, we see a basket with 3 shinai, which are the bamboo swords used for practicing kendo. A basket is actually a common occurrence in dreams. A basket in your dreams is symbolic of happiness, but only if it's full. In this case, the basket is not full. An empty basket can represent unpleasantness. The basket shown here is not full or empty. This means that Suguha will experience both happiness and unpleasantness in the future. It's also important to note that there's 3 shinai in the basket. This could be a reference to the 3 of Swords tarot card. The 3 of Swords represents many things such as rejection, sadness, heartbreak, betrayal, and separation. It shows that Suguha will experience an event that will cause all of these emotions. We later see in the fairy dance arc, Suguha finds out that Kirito is actually Kazuto. This causes Suguha to experience rejection, sadness, heartbreak, betrayal, and separation. Furthermore, the 3 of Swords is also about release. After you've experienced a major setback or loss, it's a good time to cry about it. This is all part of the cleansing process. It Expressing your sadness and letting it all out can help you move on to better times. During the fairy dance arc, we see that Suguha cries after she learns that Kirito is Kazuto. This is part of Suguha's cleansing process. After she experiences this sadness, she's able to move on and experience better times. We then see Suguha practicing kendo all by herself. Suguha strikes with her shinai, but then she stops and hesitates. This shows that Suguha is unsure of what to do. Suguha stops and looks towards the left. This is the same direction that Kirito is looking in. This suggests that Kirito and Suguha are both looking towards the same thing. My guess would be the hospital that Asuna is in. In the next shot, we see that Suguha is leaning back and she leans all the way to the floor. This shows that Suguha has nobody to lean on. Leaning is also a common occurrence in dreams. If you're leaning on somebody else, it shows that you depend on that person. However, Suguha is not leaning on anybody, so this shows that Suguha is feeling lonely. Suguha also clenches her fists. A clenched fist is a symbol of solidarity and support. The symbol is also commonly used as a salute to express many other things, including unity and strength. Since Suguha's fists are clenched, this shows that she wants to support Kirito. Suguha doesn't have anyone to lean on, but she wants to remain strong and support Kirito. We then see Sugo Nobuyuki cleaning his glasses. Glasses mainly represent vision and intellect. Since Sugo is cleaning his glasses, it also shows that his vision will be blurred in the future. Towards the end of the fairy dance arc, we see that Sugo's eye was damaged in the fight with Kirito and his vision was clouded. After cleaning his glasses, Sugo puts them on. Since glasses also represent intellect, Sugo wants to appear intellectual. As Sugo is walking away, we can see the reflection of Oberon. Sugo doesn't look back at his reflection. This shows that Sugo doesn't acknowledge himself as Oberon and he sees himself as a different person. In the next shot, we see that Nagata Shinichi is looking at a reflection of himself in the mirror. His reflection is his Alfheim Online avatar, Rekkan. Unlike Sugo, Nagata is looking directly at his reflection. This shows that Nagata acknowledges himself as Rekkan and he sees himself as his avatar. It's also important to note that Nagata has a handkerchief in his mouth. In the game Ragnarok Online, there's an item called handkerchief in mouth. The item's description states that nibbling on this handkerchief makes people feel compassion for you. The creator of Sword Art Online, Reki Kawahara, has played Ragnarok Online before. This is most likely a reference to that game. The handkerchief in the game is half pink and Nagata's handkerchief is also pink. Coincidence? I think not. We later learn in the fairy dance arc that Nagata has a crush on Suguha. Since Nagata was nibbling on his handkerchief, it shows that he wants Suguha to love him. We then see Asuna standing in the middle of a lake. This is probably a reference to the Lady of the Lake. The Lady of the Lake is the name of a ruler of Avalon in the Arthurian legends. She plays a pivotal role in many stories. She's also the one that gives King Arthur his sword, Excalibur. This foreshadows that the sword Excalibur will be used in the future. Towards the end of the fairy dance arc, the holy sword Excalibur was used. During the battle between Kirito and Oberon, Kirito used Heathcliff's system ID to generate Excalibur, and then Kirito gave Excalibur to Oberon. In the next few shots, we see the doves flying above Asuna, Kirito, and Leafa. The doves are flying in the same position as they were during the beginning of the opening. In the beginning of the opening though, it was in real life. Now it's in the virtual world. This shows that real life and the virtual world are connected. Asuna then looks up and we see her expression change. This shows that Asuna is hopeful. This is very similar to one of the shots at the beginning of the opening, the shot where Suguha looks towards the sky. In fact, Suguha and Asuna's facial expressions are pretty much identical. In the next shot, we see Kirito and Leafa flying away. The scene here shows that Kirito and Leafa are working together in order to save Asuna. This also conveys a sense of urgency. If you look closely, Kirito is also dual wielding and Leafa is missing her sword. This shows that Leafa trusts Kirito and she gives him her sword. The next shot immediately cuts to an action scene. Once again, Kirito and Leafa are working together. This shows that they need each other in order to save Asuna. We then see Rekkan and Sigurd. Rekkan is happy while Sigurd has a disapproving look on his face. This foreshadows that something will happen between Rekkan and Sigurd. During the fairy dance arc, Sigurd betrays the sylphs. Rekkan's race is a sylph, so this scene here shows that Sigurd dislikes his own race as well as the players of the same race. In the next shot, we see Eugene looking towards the world tree. Eugene is not concerned with helping Kirito save Asuna. Eugene only wants to become more powerful. Since Eugene is looking away from the audience, this shows that he's not really connected with the same struggles as the viewers. We then see Alicia Rue and Sakuya. They are both smiling and looking towards the viewer. Unlike Eugene, this shows that Alicia Rue and Sakuya are connected with the same struggles as the viewer. Since they're smiling, it also shows that they're willing to help Kirito. Later in the fairy dance arc, we see that the Katesis and the sylphs help Kirito fight the Guardian Knights. Oberon then appears and he's looking menacing. As the camera pans out, we see that he's standing in the middle of a bunch of small pillars. The pillars contain the minds of the 300 trapped SAO players. Oberon trapped the SAO players so that he could experiment on them and manipulate their minds. Since Oberon is standing in the center, it shows that he thinks he's in control of everything. In the next shot, we see Yui as well as Kirito and Leafa. All three of them are smiling and happy. Kirito is also holding hands with Leafa. Holding hands represents the connection between two people. It also shows the feeling of safety while in the company of a loved one. In this case, Kirito feels safe with Leafa and Leafa feels safe with Kirito. When Kirito was younger, he pushed Suguha away way, but now Kirito feels more connected with Suguha. We then go back to the shot with Asuna. The last we saw Asuna, she had a surprised look on her face. Asuna is still looking up, but now she smiles. This shows that she is happy for Kirito, Leafa, and Yui. The scene then fades to the hospital in the real world, the same hospital that Asuna is in. It's also important to note that it's snowing. The snow here represents change, renewal, and transformation. Since it's snowing outside Asuna's hospital, it foreshadows that Asuna will change or transform. Towards the end of the fairy dance arc, we see that Asuna wakes up. She changes from being unconscious to conscious. The next scene shows Kirito, Leafa, and Yui. Kirito and Leafa both have their swords set to the side. The swords are also pointing downwards. When swords are pointed downwards, it implies that the fight is over. This shows that Kirito and Leafa want to take this moment to relax. They have a tough fight ahead of them, so they can't waste their energy. If you focus on Yui, you can see that Yui is eating a cracker. This is similar to the Aincrad arc where Yui is eating a sandwich. This shows that Yui is comfortable being with Kirito. We then get a quick shot of Kirito and Yui sleeping in the grass. This is a reference to the end of Crossing Field. During the second to last scene of Crossing Field, we see that Kirito is sleeping in the grass. Now Kirito is sleeping in the grass again, but this time Yui joins them. This again goes to show that Yui is comfortable being with Kirito. We then see Leafa wants Kirito to follow her. This shows that Leafa is in charge and wants to lead Kirito. Kirito's facial expression turns to surprise. This shows that Kirito didn't expect Leafa to be so confident. Now we're back in real life. The doves are flying over Kirito this time. The last time the doves were flying beside Kirito and the shadows didn't touch him. That meant that Kirito was out of place. However, now the shadows are touching Kirito. Similar to the scenes with Asuna and Suguha, this shows that Kirito no longer feels out of place. Kirito stops and turns back around. This is very similar to the earlier scene where Kirito turned back around. Again, this shows that Kirito turned back to let the viewer know there's something he must do. Kirito is also probably looking towards the direction of Asuna's hospital. This time though, Suguha pushes Kirito. In the earlier scene, Kirito is by himself, but now he has Suguha's help. Kirito is about to give up, but now Suguha is pushing Kirito forward, both literally and figuratively. Suguha then looks back towards the camera and smiles. In one of the earlier scenes, we saw that Suguha was looking up with a questionable look on her face. Suguha was looking for happiness, and now she's found it. That's why she's able to smile. Being with Kirito is what makes Suguha happy. It's also important to note that Suguha is wearing a scarf. It's not just any scarf though, it's a red scarf. The red scarf is most likely a reference to the red string of fate. The red string of fate is an East Asian belief that originates from a Chinese legend. According to this legend, the gods tie an invisible red cord around the ankles of those that are destined to meet one another in a certain situation or help each other in a certain way. Often in Japanese cultures, the red string of fate is thought to be tied around the little finger. In this case, Suguha's red scarf is a reference to the red string of fate. It's similar to Mikasa's red scarf in Attack on Titan and Naruto's red scarf in The Last Naruto the movie. We find out during the fairy dance arc that Suguha loves Kirito. Her red scarf here is a reference to her love for Kirito. Kirito and Suguha both look towards the same direction. This is most likely the direction of Asuna's hospital. They take one last look back and then walk forward. In one of the earlier scenes, we saw Kirito do the same, except Kirito is alone. Now Kirito has Suguha with him. This shows that Kirito and Suguha will work together. They're ready to move on and they're not afraid of the challenges that they will have to face. Kirito and Suguha are also walking from one end of the crosswalk to another end. This shows that they want to make progress and work towards their final goal of saving Asuna. The final scene shows 3 white doves flying away. We actually see the doves for real this time, not the shadows. It's also important to note that there's 3. This could mean several different things. The 3 doves can represent Kirito, Suguha, and Asuna. It shows that they will be together in the end. The dove is also the symbol of peace. Since this is the final shot of the opening, the doves here show that everything will be okay in the end and there will be a peaceful conclusion.
If you are looking for a great harem anime where the protagonist is transported to a video game-like world, check out Harem in the Labyrinth of Another World. While it's not perfect, it's an entertaining and enjoyable watch.
Here's how to fix Harem in the Labyrinth of Another World. The anime begins with Michio Kaga playing an online virtual reality game. He finds a sword called Durandal. It doesn't make sense for the main character to acquire a super overpowered weapon right off the bat. This is supposed to be a video game, and players don't randomly obtain a super strong weapon at the start, nor do they have the levels required to equip it. They typically begin with basic gear. The fix would be to make Michio less powerful at the start, and have him work his way up. It should be like Naofumi Iwatani in The Rising of the Shield Hero. Michio sees how the village is being attacked by a group of bandits, and he kills several of them. The village chief Samara gives Michio the equipment that the bandits were using. Michio tries to log out of the game, however he's unable to do so. The anime needs a better explanation as to why Michio is trapped inside the game and he can't log out. The only reasoning we got is Michio pressed a button that made him unable to return once he started playing the game. That's not a very strong setup. Even though Sword Art Online is a bad anime overall, it at least explained how and why the characters were trapped inside the game. In order to fix it, they should make it so that Michio is sucked inside the game world, like what happened to the characters in Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle. It's a generic reason admittedly, but it's better than nothing. There should also be a clear objective. Does Michio have to beat the game to return to reality? We don't know what Michio is trying to accomplish, so the story seems aimless without a goal. One of the villagers tried to steal Michio's bandana, and he becomes classified as a slave. Michio and Samato travel to the nearby town of Vale. The town is way too bland and boring. Vale looks exactly like every town in all the other isekai anime out there. The only difference is that it's in the shape of a square instead of a circle. This anime feels very uninspired. The most ironic part is that this series first came out in 2011, so it's actually older than other isekai series, but it feels way more dull. Instead of a medieval fantasy setting, it would be a lot cooler if this anime took place inside a futuristic sci-fi game. You could still have the labyrinths. The medieval fantasy setting for isekai anime is way too overused, so it would have been nice to see something different. Michio sells the slave to a trader named Alan for some money, and he parts ways with Samara. Alan tells Michio about a nearby labyrinth, and he suggests Michio buy a slave to help him. Alan explains that slaves can't betray their masters, or else they will die. Michio agrees to buy a female slave named Roxanne. She's a wolfkin and beast warrior. Michio can't afford to pay the asking price, but Alan allows Michio 5 days to gather the funds needed. The whole slavery element of the story is unnecessary. Just make it so that Michio needs a companion or party member. There's a flash forward to 10 years in the future. An older Michio goes to the village where he first started. They shouldn't have shown this. All of the scenes where Michio's in danger are going to be meaningless, because he's guaranteed to survive. Roxanne is there as well, so we know that she doesn't die either. And they also gave away who else was joining Michio's party, so it ruins the surprise. This entire flash forward scene should be cut out, or put it at the end. Back in the present, Michio plans to go to the labyrinth to earn some money. Michio enters the labyrinth and he tries out his skills. Michio realizes that casting spells dampens his mood. Michio decides to not use too many spells, until he has more MP. The magic aspect of this anime is actually pretty detailed, so there's nothing to fix about that. Michio goes inside a secret room. It turns out to be a monster den. Michio gets attacked by the monsters and he nearly dies. This is exactly why they shouldn't have shown the flash forward scene at the start of the episode. We know that Michio won't die, so it ruins all of the suspense and tension. Michio kills all of the monsters and he escapes. Michio goes back to Vale, and the townspeople tell him that survivors of the bandit gang from the village are here. Michio plans to hunt the bandits for money. Michio goes to the slums at night, and he follows a bandit to the headquarters. Michio's landlord tells him that there's a power struggle between the bandits. This anime is trying to do too much stuff at once. The main focus should be about Michio trying to beat the labyrinth, like an anime version of the Maze Runner, not a bandit turf war. There's only one day left to purchase Roxanne, so Michio infiltrates the bandit headquarters, and he kills several of the bandits while they're sleeping. The other bandits come, so Michio teleports away. Michio claims the bounties, and he finally has enough money to buy Roxanne. A contract is created and Michio is officially Roxanne's owner. Michio buys a bigger room for himself and Roxanne. Afterwards, Michio buys Roxanne some equipment. This is a decent scene of Michio and Roxanne bonding. We also get to learn a bit more about Michio's personality. He has slightly more depth than your typical isekai harem protagonist. Michio and Roxanne go to the labyrinth. Michio declares that he's not going to leave Roxanne and go back to his homeland. So what's the goal? Michio doesn't care about returning to reality, so he doesn't need to beat the game or anything. Without a purpose, nothing matters. Michio's motive should be similar to Hajime Nagamo, Inari Ferretta from Commonplace to World's Strongest. Hajime's goal is to return home, but he'll also bring the other members of his harem along too. Roxanne explains that the labyrinth is growing, and it goes upwards instead of downwards. The only way to beat the labyrinth is to defeat the boss on every level and reach the highest floor. This is why the main focus of the anime should be about beating the labyrinth. This could have been a good version of Sword Art Online, where Michio and Roxanne fight bosses and clear each floor. That would have been awesome, but instead this anime suffers the same exact problem as Sword Art Online, where it's more of a slice of life series, and the other stuff is an afterthought. There's not a lot of variety when it comes to the monsters. All of the monsters that Michio has encountered so far are the same. The game would be pretty stale and repetitive if you have to fight the same monsters all the time. They should include some different kinds of monsters to add in some diversity. Michio and Roxanne find the floor 1 boss room. Only one party can enter the boss room at a time, or else the boss doesn't appear. This makes a lot more sense than Sword Art Online. There was no limit as to how many parties could enter the boss room, so you could go with a group of 1,000 players and easily cheese the bosses without caring about the proper mechanics. Michio and Roxanne defeat the boss. The boss was defeated way too easily. The characters should have struggled a bit more to show that they aren't so overpowered. Michio and Roxanne go to the second floor. It looks exactly like the first floor. Each floor should have a unique design, similar to how it worked in Sword Art Online. The viewer should be able to tell right away that the characters are on a different floor. Michio and Roxanne return to town. Michio sees a bandit spying on Alan's house. Michio warns Alan about the bandit. Alan says that he stole the thief from the village. Alan thinks that the thief is actually a bandit, and he'll wait for everyone to go to sleep to let the other bandits inside the house. Why does this anime focus so much on the bandits? As previously mentioned, beating the labyrinth should be the main storyline instead of this bandit side quest. It's like how Halloween Ends focus on a completely new character, which is not what audiences actually wanted or expected to see. Roxanne is worried, so Michio offers to become a bodyguard for Alan. Michio and Roxanne join Alan's other bodyguards at night. Michio sees a bandit, and he uses a spell called Equivalent Exchange. It causes the bandit's self-destruct orb to explode. Alan pays Michio for his services. Michio and Roxanne go back to the labyrinth. Michio discovers discovers that he can cast other fire and water spells. Michio plans to primarily use magic in combat from now on. Michio and Roxanne find the floor 2 boss room. They quickly defeat the boss together. The boss battles in this anime are way too short. This particular fight didn't even last 30 seconds. The boss battles should be big epic events. Not the same as a normal monster fight. Michio and Roxanne go to the 3rd floor, which looks exactly like the 1st and 2nd floors. As explained before, the design should be unique so it doesn't seem so repetitive. Afterwards, Michio pays a mage to teleport him to a town called Kudatar. Now Michio can teleport to Kudatar anytime. Michio wants to buy a house, so he and Roxanne don't have to continue living in the inn. Michio and Roxanne teleport to Kudatar. Michio and Roxanne rent a big house on the outskirts of Kudatar. Michio goes to the Kudatar labyrinth on his own, while Roxanne cleans the house. It's good how the Kudatar labyrinth has a different design than the Veil labyrinth, but there are too many labyrinths being introduced into the story. The characters haven't even beaten one labyrinth yet, so they shouldn't be going to another labyrinth already. It's like how the Sword Art Online series keeps jumping between different games. Instead of focusing on one main game, there's more than enough story to tell in one labyrinth, so the characters don't need to go to another one until they've beaten the first one. Kudatar's labyrinth is way more crowded, so there will be a lot more competition for the monsters. Michio and Roxanne enter the Kudatar labyrinth. Roxanne mentions that nobody has ever beaten this labyrinth. The highest floor ever reached was 91. This dialogue here is irrelevant, because the characters never reach anywhere near the 91st floor. It would only make sense if Michio and Roxanne advance higher than floor 91 later, which they don't. We also don't know how many floors there are in total, so there's no point of reference. Is it 91 out of 100 floors? Or 91 out of 10,000 floors? And what's the reward for beating the labyrinth? Is it just a sense of pride and accomplishment? Or do the characters actually get something? Michio and Roxanne easily defeat the first floor boss. This is another reason why switching to a different labyrinth and starting from the beginning floor again wasn't a good choice. The boss battles should get harder and more intense as it goes on, but instead we're back to square one. The boss battles are really boring and uneventful. Michio and Roxanne meet another adventurer in the Kudatar labyrinth. He gets killed by the boss, and Michio is worried that he or Roxanne could also die. It would have been more emotionally impactful if the adventurer was part of Michio's group, and he died because Michio messed up. The adventurer is just a random guy who had a few seconds of screen time, so the audience doesn't really care that he died, since there was no time to get attached to him. The adventurer didn't even have a name. Michio goes to Alan's house, and he buys a female dwarf slave named Sherry. It sure took a while for this harem anime to add another member. We're on episode 11 out of 12. They should have just focused on the relationship between Michio and Roxanne, instead of tacking on the harem element. It feels like the author wanted to write a standard romance story, but forgot that it was supposed to be a harem until the last minute. And why does every harem have to include a lolly? Sherry is supposed to be 16 years old, but she has some sort of birth defect that makes her look a lot younger. 3 more members are added to the harem: Miria the catkin, Vesta the dragonkin, and Rutina the elf. Instead of rushing things, the girls should have gradually been added into the story, not crammed at the very end. It's not a natural progression. We're literally at the end credits. This is not the time to suddenly introduce more characters. This doesn't even feel like a harem anime, since Michio has spent so much time alone with Roxanne, and she's clearly the best girl for him. I guess they're not planning on making a season 2, so that's why they did a speedrun of the other girls at the end. If a season 2 does come out, then this ending should totally be retconned, and that's how to fix harem in the labyrinth of another world. Do you have any better ideas or methods? If so, let me know in the comments below. Harem in the Labyrinth of Another World received mixed reviews from critics and audiences. There are currently 12 volumes of the light novel and 8 volumes of the manga, so there's more than enough content to adapt for another season. However, a season 2 of this anime hasn't been officially announced yet. A season 2 seems unlikely based on how this anime ended, but we'll have to wait and find out what happens. Which movie or anime should I do next? Leave a suggestion. The Sword Art Online Fairy Dance arc received mostly negative reviews from critics and audiences. Many consider it to be the worst arc in the entire Sword Art Online franchise. A second season of Sword Art Online started airing in July 2014. It covered the Phantom Bullet, Caliber, and Mother's Rosario story arcs. After that, an ordinal scale movie was released in February 2017. It's an original story that's not based on any of the light novels. An alternative Gun Gale Online spin-off series started airing in April 2018. A third season of Sword Art Online started airing in October 2018. It covered the Alicization arc and was split up in several different parts. The Aria of a Starless Night progressive movie was released in October 2021. A sequel called Scherzo of a Dark Dusk is going to premiere sometime in 2022. The next Sword Art Online story arc is called Unito Ring. As of 2021, the Sword Art Online light novels have sold about 26 million copies worldwide. A live-action adaptation of Sword Art Online is also in development by Netflix. Leda Kalogridis will be the showrunner and executive producer. Several Sword Art Online video games have been released: Infinity Moment, Hollow Fragment, Lost Song, Hollow Realization, End World, Code Register, Millennium Twilight, Memory Defrag, Integral Factor, Fatal Bullet, and Alicization Lycoris. What did you think of the Sword Sword Art Online Fairy Dance arc. Additionally, which movie or anime should I do next? Leave a suggestion. Check out some of the other videos on this channel. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a future upload. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.